Hello, let's call our final meeting of this year to order. Well, I guess we got tomorrow, so our final set of meetings to order. June 14th, 2023. We need to start this meeting with approval of our minutes from the May 17th and 18th meetings. Do I hear a motion to approve or any amendments? I'll move. Move to approve.
Second.
In a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're a little early there.
It was.
Yeah, yeah, all opposed, same sign.
Does it still count?
Still count.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Let the record show unanimous approval of the minutes. All right, introductions and reports. I know Regent Dicus has an introduction he'd like to make, so we'll start there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, it is my honor. I've been waiting since February to be able to make this introduction. And welcome the 15th president of Washburn University, Dr. Julianne Mazachek, to the Kansas Board of Regents. Julie is an accomplished leader in higher education, most recently serving as president of Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas. Prior to that, and unfortunately we got her back, spent 30 years at Washburn University in various leadership roles. She served as vice president for academic affairs, dean of the Washburn School of Business, and president and CEO of the Washburn University Alumni Association and Foundation. President Mazachek earned a bachelor's degree in engineering management with an emphasis in mechanical engineering from Missouri University of Science and Technology, and received a master's degree in business administration and a doctorate in accounting from the University of Kansas. So I would welcome back a graduate of a KBOR University, Dr. Julianne Mazachek.
Thank you, Regent. Thank you, Regent Dicus. And I will just take just a couple of minutes to say, first of all, thank you. I'm super excited to be back in Kansas and to be back in a state that I love so much and serving an institution that I believe makes a significant difference in our state. I do know most of the people in this room because I've worked with so many of you over the years and different important partnerships. And this is an exciting time in Kansas, and it's a challenging time, and will call us all to come together and think about education differently and think about partnerships differently in the future. And I am thrilled and humbled to be able to be a part of that. And then finally, I want to say I am so proud of my alma mater, the University of Kansas, and I am happy to be able to serve in the state that my alma mater serves also. So thank you. All right. Thank you all.
Welcome, President Mazachek, and we're excited to work alongside you. Any other introductions for this meeting? All right, move to the chair's report. This one will be a little longer than what you guys are used to from me, so lean back into your chair and get comfortable. All right. No songs. First, want to recognize President Mason is with us via Zoom. Oh, do you have an introduction? Someone can raise. Okay. President Mason is with us via Zoom. Governor was on campus here this morning to do the signing of the bill for the affiliation work, which was a top priority for us this year. So congratulations, President Mason, on that. And you were in the right place today. So it's great to celebrate that and that it's all official. So and then I also want to recognize, usually, we got a lot of great rankings among our different schools out there, but there was quite a jump that I just want to recognize. KU Law just jumped in school rankings into the overall top 50 for the first time. What was amazing is a 27 spot jump as they reevaluated the criteria, and I'd say got more balanced and real on what matters. And makes it the number 18 ranked law school among public universities. So just a great accomplishment for that team out there and for KU Law. So really cool to see that. I also just want to recognize the great year that we've had. I don't have the video put together that our esteemed chair did last year, which was way more impressive than what you're about to experience. But it's it's interesting just looking through our agenda today. You can see how much that we set out forth at the beginning. I went back and looked at our list from our retreat last July. And just seeing a lot on the agenda that we'd set out to try and accomplish. And we wondered if it was going to be too much or if we could get it all done. So I'm just going to highlight a few of those things. The NIST playbooks coming in and getting started on the adoption of those. We're really pleased and probably ahead of schedule from where we thought we'd be. We have a dashboard started and metrics that we've agreed to. The gen ed curriculum and the elementary ed that we'll approve today are huge improvements. The improvements we've made on cyber, the improvements we've made in not feeling like you have to wear a tie to this meeting this year, big highlight. The associate's degree that we'll be voting on today, program review, performance agreements, the tens of millions, really probably would end up being hundreds of millions we've saved through the deferred maintenance and demolition projects and progress this year. The progress on need-based scholarships, the work Tara and her team have done on OER. I guess the R is resources, but the OER program and Apply Kansas and the FAFSA completion, the partnership with the State Board of Ed on that. The work that we've been doing in Pillar 3 in economic development. Some big projects named. The pilots with high schools with Manhattan Tech and WSU Tech this year. And the blanking right now, is that Diploma Plus is where we're headed on that? Yep. And the dual and concurrent enrollment progress we're making, we'll be voting on today. The student health review, we'll get more progress on that today. The workforce related issues, as we've tried to take on a couple specific areas. I just want to highlight the deans of education again for how quickly they've worked on splitting up plans. I got to be with 3 of them in a meeting on Monday, and the work on literacy that they've been doing. And then seeing KU and Wichita State partner together on the Health Science Center, and to have so much funding come in on that now, to a little over 200 million. That at 205 that we have, it'd be a $300 million project, which would be the largest capital project in the history of downtown Wichita. And what's recently announced, KU and WSU playing basketball again against each other. That may be the miracle of miracles. Yes, neutral territory. So I mean, I just read through that list. It's almost exhausting to think about all the work that we've been able to do together. But it's Regent Kiplinger talked about highly effective teams. It's the speed that a highly effective team can work on. That's the presidents and chancellor. It's the teams at the universities. It's the staff at KBOR and the leadership here. And it's this my fellow regents. We're all working in tandem. And so I'm just super encouraged at how we're leaning into a quickly changing marketplace and world around education. And I feel like we're identifying things and moving forward, which opens up new territories for us to explore. So round of applause for everybody for all the work that you've done this year. And I guess I need to go on beyond, the legislature, I feel like, has worked well with us. The governor's office has worked well with us. The two-year sector, the community colleges, the tech schools. We've had a great series of meetings this year and participation from them as we're trying to work more closely together and more strategically together. I want to thank Carter and Jim. Jim can't be here today. He had to stay back in Manhattan. But they've been the representatives of both the community colleges, Carter File from Hutch and Jim Jeanette from Manhattan, representing the tech schools. And they've just, that requires a lot more meetings, a lot more travel. And I appreciate your service to higher ed in the state of Kansas for a long time and what it's meant this year. So a round of applause for Carter and Jim, please. And then I want to thank Matt Casey too. Assume that's Yeah, okay, that's,
Okay.
I just had a blank, because like, I think that's public, okay. Matt, yeah, is it that?
Yeah, it
okay.
is, it is.
So Matt's had a baby, so I had a fallback, I guess, if it wasn't, so double congratulations to Matt, who has a new baby and who's sleeping well, so don't feel too bad for him. So new life and also a new career opportunity, moving over to K-State and taking on a role with legislative affairs over there. So congratulations, Matt. Thank you for your consistent and excellent service to the Regents, and we're grateful that you'll still be a part of the family as we move forward. So thank you for everything, Matt. And then last but not least, in my chair report, I just want to thank Regent Kimblinger and Regent Harrison Lee, who I'll call Shelley and Cheryl here. It's been a pleasure serving with you. We just got to talk outside, but I say just a couple things here. Cheryl, I just want to thank you for what you've given. And I think about your year as chair. And when we look across here, 4 of the 6 folks we have here were hired pretty close to during your year. And so big presidential searches, and those are heavy, heavy lifts and have a long-term impact on everything else, while keeping us moving forward on everything else, was amazing. So thank you for your time and your service. And Shelley, I just thank you, particularly through academic affairs. And we look at the laundry list of change and things that we're doing there that I feel like when we were starting, people said that will take too long or is impossible, or we can't get all the right people to work together. And we're finding that collaboration and the kind of leadership that you provide of being willing to listen, work through problems, identify solutions, and to think about how you've touched so many different sectors of education in this state over your tenure in different geography and different levels. What an accomplishment, what a career. And so I've just been a joy to ride your coattails these last 4 years, and to go deeper as friends, and to feel like I got to be a part of the legacy you guys are leaving here as Regents. So you get to take your nameplates after this meeting as a parting gift, but just another round of applause for these 2 great Regents and all their service. All right, that's
So may I have an addendum?
sure. Yes.
Well,
We
we
vice
should-
chair report.
We should all thank you for your leadership as chair the last year as well. Certainly all those accomplishments you just read demonstrate the impact that you have and the great collaboration. So thank you as well.
Thank you. All right, we're going to pass it over to President Flanders.
All right, thank you, Chair Rolfe. Just wanted to let the group know that these meetings, I know this has a negative connotation, it's not negative, but they're a bit like an iceberg. So what you see in the meeting room is a lot of activity. I think about, as you talked about, we've got essentially three task force reporting in the next couple of days with student athlete healthcare, dual concurrent, the health workforce task force. So tremendous activity. And this board is an active board. There's no board in the country with as comprehensive agenda as the Kansas Board of Regents. It just doesn't exist. And so it's happening right here. What that does, though, is there's a lot of preparation for a meeting. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank my entire team, because these meetings don't come off just by accident. And certainly there's a lot of heavy lifting in the meantime as we go from month to month. So I wanted to give a hand to my team. And then a little carve out for our data research and planning team. We are launching the new dashboard, the dashboard that supports Pillar 1 in our strategic plan. That's going to be live on the website in about a week, and there's just the last minute testing. And that's new for our state, that's new for our system, and I think is going to really be a big help to the Regents as they begin each meeting looking at those numbers and how we're doing. And we're also excited then to get those supporting metrics here early fall launched so that we can get a quick picture of how we're doing as a system. So thanks to that team as well. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for President Flanders? All right, we'll move into committee reports. Regent Kiblinger, Academic Affairs.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying that we had a pretty good record for 3 years in Bass getting out on time until today. So waited till the end to totally blow it, but we had a lot of important things on our agenda today. Starting out with Dr. Paul Adams from Fort Hays State outlined the statewide associate degree in elementary education. So that will be discussed in more detail today for all of you. Our committee approved an MS in global leadership from Fort Hays State, which is also included on our agenda today. Dr. Archer presented on the associate degree policy that will allow universities to offer an associate in arts in general studies or liberal arts within certain parameters. So you see that on the agenda today for approval. Daniel Archer also presented on the academic program review framework that will also be discussed later today. And on all of these things, last two things, just lots and lots of work by the KBOR staff and lots of collaboration with our various institutional partners. So we really appreciate and want to acknowledge that. And then finally, Judd McCormick highlighted key data elements and gave us a little demonstration on the strategic plan dashboard. And that is my report.
Any questions? Regent Kiblinger. Okay, Regent Ice, Fiscal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we warmed up by approving the minutes from our May meeting, which was really good because we had a fast-paced, effective meeting. So it was good we were warmed up. We reviewed some material that had come up in the agenda call, such as the 2 years tiered and the tiered and non-tiered funding for the 2 year segment for the last decade or so. And then we did go, as you would expect us to, through each of the agenda items on it for fiscal affairs in your board books. And I would suggest you should feel confident we covered them all well. There was one change, and that is if you look at the board book on page 40, there was an omission from the budget request for KU Med Center, and that's for $75 million to construct a new cancer facility with a 1-to-1 match. So that should be added to that segment. At least at our committee, we handed something out. But that gives me a chance to say this is a great project that we're really looking forward to the impact it's going to have since we're talking about it. And then lastly, much as this conversation today's been, as our last meeting of the fiscal year, we did take a moment to reflect on the first year of implementation of the maintenance assessment, the deferred maintenance policy that we've had in place a couple of years, but this was the first year we started the first phase of funding, and just a tremendous amount's been accomplished with the work of a lot of people, certainly all the people in the first couple rows of our maybe the first 3 rows of our group, all the various people that have helped through all of that, and certainly Director Briscoe. And board office data team is another data team to mention that's put together work that's really down at the room level on our campuses. And one of the things that's come from this is that the work that we've done and the demonstration of the care we're taking about something important, our facilities, especially mission critical ones, and that information has certainly enhanced our collaboration with the governor, with the agencies that are appropriate, and with the legislature as we've collaborated on improving the condition of the buildings on our campuses. And we should look forward to continued great acceleration here. Everybody's really pulling together hard on this initiative, and you can see the impact. We'd stand for questions.
Any questions for Regent Ice? All right, Governance Committee. Governance Committee met this morning to consider 2 items. After approving the May meeting minutes, the committee reviewed Regent Benson's reported potential conflict of interest of being accepted to the Pittsburgh State University School of Business to obtain a master's in business administration. I'll tell you, what a rough way to say that. Congratulations on this wonderful deal being accepted into the school business. Yeah, I think that's great. Well, that'll come back up on the agenda later here in our discussions. And I'm actually, while I'm doing the governance committee report, I'm going to make a motion that we move Regent Benson's conflict of interest, which currently sits at D. Let me make sure I got this right here. D2 under section 6 up to section 6A2. So we vote on that before we vote on tuition. Does that make sense? So in section 6 from D2 to A2, do I have a second to move that on the agenda?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. That's great. The committee then had an executive session, to discuss CEO compensation for fiscal year 2024, which is on the agenda for tomorrow. Any questions for governance? Okay, thank you. Now we'll move into the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Regent Harrison Lee moves to approve. Do I have a second? Regent Dykes is second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, unanimous. Thank you all very much. Now we'll move on to discussion. And we have a special guest here who's been doing a lot of work. We'll receive a report from Task Force on Student Athlete Healthcare. Dr. Jagger has been sharing that, if he'll come up and make his presentation. Thank you very much. And Regents, I think you have a printout of this presentation in front of you if you want to go over it that way.
Thank you for having me here this afternoon. I'm Dr. Jim Jagger. I'm a farm boy from North Central Ohio. I have been living here in Kansas for 3 years with my wife. We live in Wichita. I love Kansas. I love Wichita. You know, it's so much more than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to be honest, but you know, I wouldn't really think about moving anywhere else. I'm happy to spend my retirement years here and hope to have a lot of fun. Second. I'd like to recognize another task force member that's here with me today, my good friend, Charles Rosansky. I don't know how many of you know him. He's in the KU Med system. He traveled with me to Emporia State and to Kansas State. I was able to, and I was fortunate enough to be able to travel to all 6 universities, and I had a great experience there. I was welcomed. I was treated kindly and with respect, and the people were very helpful. They tried to answer all the questions I have, and sometimes my questions can be quite pointed, as some people might point out. In terms of kind of what I would like to talk a little bit about today is the charges from KBOR. We were given 3 charges. The demographics of the 6 universities, the third-party consulting service that we used and how they were selected, the online assessments that they did with both the student athletes and with the gamut of people in sports administration at the different universities. Then they also completed 6 Zoom meetings at the individual universities, and then we'll go over their summary and then the task force final recommendations. The task force charge, you know, certainly as the governing board of the state universities, the board of regents has a role in ensuring the state university athletic departments operate in compliance with NCAA legislation, NCAA best practices, and best practices is a word I love, and minimal standards. In June of 2022, they issued these 3 charges. Number 1, identify the organizational structure and managerial oversight of the medical care providers within the athletic department. Specifically, is there a designated athletic healthcare administrator? Is there someone responsible for monitoring the updates from the NCAA legislation? And how did they establish that these things were communicated throughout the athletic department to all the
people that needed to hear them. Charge number 2 was mechanisms for review and reporting of concerns. Review of medical health care services provided to the student athletes was 1. Reporting line of concerns. We wanted to identify the policies and procedures of the athletic departments designed to protect the student athletes. And how do these athletic departments evaluate and adhere to these policies and procedures? The third charge was determine an evaluation process for the department policies and practices from the student athlete health and safety perspective on a periodic basis. Number 1, is there an evaluation process for ensuring compliance and adherence to the sports medicine, medical services policies, procedures, and protocols? Is compliance reviewed on an annual basis at the minimum? And when policies and procedures are changed, how are the staff members notified? And is there a verification process that they have reviewed those processes? Is there a disciplinary process for individuals who fail to adhere to the policies and procedures? And we're less concerned with that, to be honest. Our task force members, including myself, are the 6 individuals listed here. Charles Rosansky, I think Joe Bain from Hayes may be on a Zoom call with us today. But we had a wide variety of expertise from around the state that we utilized. In your issue paper, you can certainly review the biographies on these 7 individuals if you choose. Of the 6 universities in Kansas, this is not new news. There are 3 NCAA 1 schools: the University of Kansas, Kansas State University, and the Big 12 in the Big 12 Conference, and Wichita State University in the American Athletic Conference. Emporia State, Fort Hays State, and Pittsburgh State Universities are all in the Division II members, and they're members of the Mid-American Intercollegiate Athletic Association. The NCAA, just briefly, we know that they're in charge of a lot of things, and certainly competition is one of those, but we're more concerned with their rules that cover medical oversight, student athletic well-being, injury prevention, management, drug testing, anti-doping, medical examinations and clearance, and health insurance. Again, in terms of some demographics for the universities, this gives you just a look at the head count on the 20th day head count in the fall of 2022. You can see there's quite a variety in the number of students at these universities. There's also variation in the number of student athlete head count at these universities, with the high, interestingly enough, being at Fort Hays State, and the low being at Wichita State University. I think Wichita State University's numbers certainly would be up about 120 if they had a football team, which I'm assured that they will not. University athletic departments. And I'm disappointed by that because I'm a football guy. Anyway, University Athletic Department 2022 revenues. You can see that we have quite a range starting, quite high, for Kansas State and KU, and then coming down to much smaller numbers. And this is an important slide, not just to show who's got what, but to help us understand, if there are things that need to be done to improve these different universities. We may need to spread the resources out or improve them somehow, but it's not my business. Like I said, I'm a new guy to Kansas. I've got no horse in the race here, so I may be blunt at times. But I said, you've got a wonderful system. And like I said, I had the opportunity to visit all 6 schools, as I mentioned before. And I was so impressed. The mileage didn't bother me. I like driving and seeing all there is to see. But your universities are truly very special. I love the architecture everywhere I went, and that doesn't have anything to do. So I'll get back to the business at hand. Before I talk about the athletic trainers per institution, I want to talk a little bit about the physicians per institution. And the physicians per institution, even though there's not a slide, ranges anywhere from 1 to 2 physicians to as many as 15. So there's quite a range. Again, it has to do with resources, the size of the school, whether or not they've got a healthcare affiliation with their university athletic program or not. But one of the things I wanted to point out on this slide is that the full-time athletic trainers, there are 3 at Emporia State. There are 4 at Fort Hays State. Kansas State has 13. Pittsburgh State has 4. University of Kansas has 20. And Wichita State has 6. Now, when you look at that athletic trainers compared to student athletes, you've got a ratio. And the student ratio is quite high at the D2 schools, 134, 137, athletes to 1 athletic trainer. It drops down to just, 1 athletic trainer being responsible for 32 athletes or 24 or 41. And so there is a big difference there. And the one thing that I ask at every place I asked, if there's one thing I could bring to the board for you, what would it be? And the answer without question was we need more manpower, especially at the Division II schools, but even at the Division I schools. The last column I want to show you is that right now, Emporia State, Fort Hays State, and Wichita State have graduate assistant ATCs. Those are going away. I mean, they're certified athletic trainers, but that's going to disappear. And what really needs to happen at these schools is they need to be able to convert those to full-time athletic trainers, because if they can, then the ratios on the last column on the right get much smaller and much closer. Ideally, you'd like to see a ratio of 1 to 40 or 1 to 50 in terms of athletic trainers to student athletes. Third-party consulting services, we sent out a request for proposals. But we were looking for someone to gather data from the athletic departments, make best practice recommendations, make recommendations regarding policies and procedures, make recommendations for periodic updates, and identify areas of concern of greatest potential risk. And if they did identify areas of great potential risk, we wanted to be notified immediately so that we could intervene. Third-party consulting services also, we wanted to conduct surveys of student athletes. We wanted to know what the student athlete's familiarity was with the available health services and the protocols. We wanted to know what the student satisfaction with those services could be. We wanted to make recommendations to the task force regarding the organization, oversight, governance, and healthcare delivered to the student athletes. Through a competitive bidding process, we selected the U.S. Council for Athletes Health. We'll refer to them from now on as USCA. USCA's team met with the task force in early February of 23, and we launched our work. The first 2 areas that we had them involved with, or they became involved with, is that they did online surveys of the athletic department, with everyone that was important in that process. The student athlete survey was also developed an online survey. So there were 2 online surveys going on kind of at the same time. After they completed that, they started to put data together, and they decided that they would move on to focus groups. So I think these were mostly carried out by Zoom. And again, the important groups: student athletes, administrators, athletic trainers, nutritional, physical therapy, team physicians, mental health personnel, sports science, and strength and conditioning coaches were all involved in those focus groups. The only reason I throw this up, very busy slide, it just shows that USCA in their comprehensive assessment process completed all of their goals, in a timely fashion. And they had reports to the task force back by the middle of May, which was very impressive with the work they did. I mean, we had over 800 pages of reports, and they did it a phenomenal job. Some of the objectives that they were interested in primarily, we're going to focus just on the themes from the online assessments and early priorities and recommendations. The middle two, powerful practices and strengths and opportunities for growth, are things that were presented by USCA on site. They came to each individual university at the end of May or beginning of June and presented those specific things so they could see what they're doing really well and where there might be opportunities for growth. We were also, interested in terms of the online assessments, reporting structure and athletics. We wanted to know what the reporting scheme was for each and every university. We want to know about the locations of medical services and consulting, utilization of other support departments like nutrition or strength and conditioning or perhaps physical therapy. Policies and procedures, emergency action planning and education, very important. Student athlete concerns and student athlete survey results. Reporting lines within the athletic department, I already just mentioned that. Very important, is it just a reporting system within the athletic department, or does the athletic department report to someone outside? Do they have a healthcare affiliation, say similar to what the University of Kansas does? Ideally, we'd like for there to be an external reporting line and not just purely internal. And we would like the reporting structure to ultimately report to healthcare professionals. At the different universities, you can see there's different types of reporting structures who's there in terms of their point person. I'm not going to go through each and every one of those because, again, that's included in your handout. The athletic healthcare administrator, our ACHCA, is very important. This is required. This is NCAA legislation requires that each and every university have someone. Because this person's very important communicating the NCAA rules and regulations to the people within their department. Again, at the University of Kansas, they have it a little different. They have a deputy athletic director for sports administration and well-being, and she also interacts directly with First Kansas Health. Pittsburgh State University reports to their head team doc, Fort Hays head team, and the rest of them to administrators at this point in time. Locations of medical services and consulting. Every institution has facilities that serve the student athlete population, depending on the size of the resources at each institution. All had athletic training rooms, all had physician examination rooms, with the exception of Fort Hays State. And Fort Hays State is in the process of procuring funding for a new building at the end of the stadium, which will incorporate the physician exam rooms in that new building. All private locations, all have private locations for mental health consultations, some on campus, some within the athletic department. I had some concerns about there being mental health counseling going on directly in the athletic department building. And the reason I say that is because if students know that, they're going to be less likely to say, well, let's go there. And then if you're sitting outside the door where where the consultant is, everybody says, oh, look, they're going to go see the mental health doctor. And so, it's probably better to do it through a student health center where you can have entrances on the backside or whatever. You just need to give the student athletes as much privacy as you possibly can, or they just won't go. Utilization of other departments. Everybody has some buddy in sports psychology or behavioral health service. You can see a lot of places, it's many different people. And so that's good. The more, the better. Sports nutrition serves, as you can see, there were 3 schools, the 3 D2 schools do not really have any sports nutrition. They may have some sports nutrition through their strength coach, but the big schools really, I was very impressed at Kansas State University and the University of Kansas with what they had and their nutritionalists. And I got to meet some of those people. Let's see. the last column is physical therapy. Everybody has access to physical therapy, at least outside of the department. The University of Kansas has a half-time person that comes in on mornings 4 days a week. And so they do actually have somebody on site for their physical therapy. Programmatic reviews, sports medicine department reviews, Emporia State, Pittsburgh State, and Wichita State did not have any formal mechanism for doing that. At Fort Hays State and Kansas State, they had an internal review. At the University of Kansas, they had an external review working through Kansas Team Health. You know, it's a great relationship that they actually have, and they do the same thing with their sports psychology review. It's external to athletics. Again, on the sports psychology side of things, again, Emporia State and Wichita State did not have a formal mechanism for programmatic review. Policies and procedures, you know, these varied by school. The only one that didn't really have a formal review process was Pittsburgh State. Emporia State said they did have a formal review process, but they were unable to share or provide policies and procedures to USCA for review. Emergency action planning. All 6 schools have emergency action planning and education in place at their athletic venues. There's some variation. Everybody was lacking at least one area of emergency where they didn't have an emergency action plan in place. Some had maybe 5 or 6. These are easy fixes. You know, they know what to do. I mean, I asked questions of the athletic trainers and the people and their strength coach and different people. They knew what to do in these circumstances, but it needs at some of the schools, it needs to be formalized, or the NCAA is going to be very unhappy. Student athlete survey results. Again, you can see there's a range here, athletic training, and this was really, you know, how aware were the student athletes of what their university was able to provide? And I think you can see pretty quickly in every category that the Division I programs had a very high 97, 100%, 98%, you know, in most categories where the student athletes knew what was going on. They didn't just know the athletic trainer, they knew some of the policies and procedures and protocols. And at some of the other, especially the Division II schools, they did not. There was a much smaller, you know, 26, 27% rating. Okay, now we're coming to the end. We're going to go over the 3 charges and what USCA was able to find for us. Number 1, compliance with NCAA legislation for a designated healthcare administrator and oversight in medical care providers. Those responsible for providing managerial oversight of medical care providers within the athletic departments were identified, as were those responsible for monitoring the NCAA legislation. Now, I told you that there should be one person kind of in charge of that. It's shared at many universities. Compliance is usually significantly involved in these areas of NCAA legislation and guidelines and practices. It was established how the updates were communicated throughout the athletic departments at these 6 universities. Second charge, a mechanism for review and reporting of concerns. The mechanisms for review and reporting the concerns raised by student athletes were reviewed. You saw kind of what those percentages were. The policies and procedures of the athletic departments designed to protect the student athlete were identified, and adherence to those policies was evaluated. Last thing, process to periodically evaluate departmental policies and practices from a student athlete health and safety perspective. The process was identified at each department for ensuring compliance to sports medicine and medical services policies, procedures, and protocols, as well as a timeline for reviewing and revising the process. Now, these are the individual recommendations from the task force. Number one, we wanted each university to identify how to address the early priorities and recommendations identified for each campus priority. Prepare a plan on how the opportunities for growth noted in the report will be addressed in the longer term. From a student athlete survey data, consider whether steps are needed to expand communication efforts to students regarding the medical services available to them or to make any changes to the procedures. We wanted the universities to develop a written document to formalize the department's policies and procedures, including organizational charts, expectations of the staff within the sports medicine department. We wanted the universities to ratify any contractual relationship between the university and a licensed physician to clearly establish expectations and report structure. Ideally, this reporting structure would be the university leadership with input from athletic leadership. We'd like the universities to establish an administrative lead who takes direction from the physician and interacts with the athletic and university leadership to ensure compliance with NCAA regulations. We want to create a collaborative relationship between the team physician, the athletic trainer, and the strength and conditioning staff to evaluate and supervise the medical appropriateness of the program with the ability for someone to intervene in urgent and emergent situations. We want to encourage each university to evaluate the percentage of their athletic budget devoted to athletic care. We want each university to conduct regular internal and external department reviews if possible. We'd like to have the universities enhance compliance and education programming in the areas of NCAA required health and safety, emergency action planning, and then especially first aid, CPR, and AED training for all coaches and support staff. We wanted to have the university identify risk management strategies in areas such as education and compliance programming, as well as policy and procedure manual education. When there are NCAA updates and reviews of old or new policies and procedures, department staff should be notified via an in-person meeting, email, or hard copy. There should be a formalized system that tracks notification and receipt of this information by the prime players. Regular athletic medicine personnel performance reviews should be carried out annually. Next steps. First, I'd like to thank the members of the task force. They've been wonderful to work with. I'd like to thank the KBOR staff for all their help and assistance, especially Elaine Frisbee. The university athletics departments were all wonderful in trying to get everything filled out in a timely manner so that we could get this done in the time frame we had to work with. And I'd also like to thank Yuska, who did extensive work on this engagement. You know, although the work of the task force and Yuska concludes today, the athletic departments must now consider these recommendations and evaluate the extensive data Yuska has prepared to leverage the information to benefit your own student athletes. The board should consider the following steps accepting this report. Number one, seek a formal report back from the universities on their progress on implementation of the task force recommendations. And number two, determine whether or not you want regular updates on the delivery of healthcare on these student athletes. Before I turn this over for possible questions, I just wanted to make sure that you have some idea of what's out there. This is really much more important for the CEOs and not so important for the board. There was the executive report from the Kansas Board of Regents was one of the first items that we received from USCA. Each university has a comprehensive report, which is the meat of everything. There's an executive summary that was presented to each university at the end of June. I'm sorry, at the end of May or beginning of June. These are all pieces of information that anyone really has access to. And with that, are there any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Jagger. Thank you to your committee. Thank you, Lane. Thanks to the athletic departments for working diligently to get through this process. Appreciate how comprehensive it is. I had one question back on the emergency action planning and education where there's gaps. Did you encourage just the sharing between athletic departments so they're not having to recreate
think-
the role?
Ideally, there are a couple of the big D1 programs have outstanding, policies and procedures and emergency action plans. And then there's really no reason that I could see why those couldn't be shared across the 6 schools.
Well, I'll encourage that.
I don't think it needs to be a duplicate effort.
Rewrite things. What questions do you guys have for Dr. Jagger? Yes, Region Winner.
Edgar, thank you for your work. I hate to gravitate to the headline grabbing material, but of course, there have been very sad headlines in the press, media, last number of years about deficiencies, we say glaring deficiencies in healthcare programs that affected health and safety of students, Michigan State, some of the Olympic programs, et cetera, et cetera. Did you all find any deficiencies that would foster that level of problem?
I would
we
say,
should all be very concerned about, is there any gap out there that leaves any of our student athletes exposed to the harm that was apparently worked over the last few years?
early on when we started the review with USCA, they understood that if they found anything, they were to notify us immediately. We were not notified. In my 6 visits to these individual campuses, I asked very pointed, sometimes very tough questions. I wanted to know how they handled, how do you handle a mental health emergency? What do you do in this circumstance? And it maybe was information that was a little too specific, but it gives you a feel for how capable these universities are. They have wonderful athletic training staffs. These people really care about their athletes. And so it was a real pleasure to visit the schools, but I did not find that. But I understand what you're saying. And one of the reasons it's so important to have those emergency action plans complete is we saw all the people that watch Monday Night Football, what happened with the Buffalo Bills, defensive back. That can happen anywhere. Things like that do happen. We saw what happened with some of the things that maybe they weren't doing quite right at the University of Iowa in the strength and conditioning program. I've been around, sports medicine a long time. I've been a sideline physician for 48 years. And that's probably coming to an end. I say that, but it probably won't happen if somebody asks me to help. But you can usually pick up if there's really a glaring deficiency somewhere. And I didn't see it.
So ask a little bit differently. When you look back, if you know of any of those instances, Michigan State, et cetera, wherever these scandals occurred, I don't know why those scandals occurred. Was it failure to follow up on concerns? Were there not enough reporting mechanisms? I take it by your answer that that you did not find you didn't find any of those levels of deficiencies.
I did not. But this is why it's so important that the policies and procedures be shared and completed at all 6 universities, because in those circumstances that you brought up, the first thing, a young man dies, because, of a heat illness situation. When the lawyers come in, I got nothing against lawyer, my son and daughter-in-law are both lawyers. Okay, all right, okay.
I'm out of
The very first question they ask, where is your policy and procedure manual? And was your policy and procedure manual followed in this circumstance? And you know, that's the way it works. And so that's why, you know, it's so important to have these documents completed. And there's really no reason across the scope of your state universities that those can't be shared. They're there.
Is there, last question, with respect to any of the universities, did you find any deficiencies that would cause you concern about your son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter participating in athletics in any of our 6 universities?
In terms of their safety, absolutely not. Are there things that could be improved in terms of performance areas such as nutrition and things like that? Absolutely. But to answer your question, no, I wouldn't hesitate.
Thank you very much.
Regent Lane.
Thank you very much. Dr. Jagger, thank you so much for your commitment to this work. And I think you may not be a full Kansan, but we can adopt you as a Kansan based on your commitment.
Believe me, I love Kansas. I already said that.
Yes. So I'd like for you to take yourself off the sideline as a physician and put yourself behind this table. What would be the 3 things that we need to do as the governing body whose tool is policy to ensure that we move forward with these best practices?
Now, in some of those reports I talked to you about, you know, they have, you know, priorities. These are the things that need to be, and those are different from each school. They're not the same. And so you would almost have to look at those individual documents and say, okay, this needs to be addressed first. And then we can go back. But I think, you know, policies and procedures, you gotta have it. You gotta have the emergency action plans. And you've got to have adequate personnel to safely deal with the number of athletes some of these schools are dealing with.
Thank you so much. So those are very helpful. Let me ask you if we need a system-wide policy that ensures this kind of practice sustains past our engagement, past your engagement, and past the CEO engagement. What do you think? System or institution level policy, or both?
It's going to be a mix. I mean, there's some system-wide things that could be addressed, but each school, like I said, is very different. And there are, you know, and they can do this internally. They don't necessarily have to have help. They just need to look at the report and say, well, here's something that we have an area to improve in. How do we do that? You know, but there are people out there, you know, like companies like USCA, that this is what they do. This is part of their business. And there are individuals out there that have expertise in these areas that can help as well. But again, you know, it's a mix.
I think that's a great question, Dr. Lane, and Regent Ice will have a motion. I think we'll include having the athletic departments come back in the fall and present to us. And we may know after that. I think it's a good lens whether we need any system-wide policies as well, as we can hear about the individual. Other questions before we hear a motion from Regent Ice? Yes, President Flanders.
Yeah, just wanted to make this comment really more overt, is that I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of consulting firms in different spaces, and USCA was first class and did a fantastic job. So I just wanted to call that out. And the amount of effort they put in and the reports really was unbelievable.
Thank you. Regent Ice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I also want to say thanks to Dr. Jagger and the committee for their work. We really appreciate it a lot. Dr. Flanders just mentioned I'm going to say the U.S. Council for Athletes Health because I'm not sure I can say USCA. I mean, we appreciate everything they did as well. And certainly it was important that you made visits to every campus. So thank you very much for that as well.
I enjoyed it.
Doesn't mean we can't thank you.
Thank you.
So I would move that the board accepts the task force recommendation as presented. And in line with the conversation, as well as very much in line with their recommendation, I'd move that each of the athletic departments present to our board in September to respond to the recommendations that are outlined on page 115. And I think that can guide us for next steps.
Do I hear a second? Second, Regent Winter. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Thanks, Dr. Jagger. Thanks, Regent Ice. All right, as you know, we moved earlier. John Urie's gonna come up and we'll talk about Blake Benson's opportunity and conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned during the chair's governance report, Regent Benson, in accordance with board policy, recently reported that he's been accepted by Pittsburgh State University's business school to obtain a master's in business administration. His studies start this summer. And the governance committee took this matter up this morning and recommends directing Regent Benson to excuse himself from participating on behalf of the board in matters involving or related to this reported conflict.
All right, and similar, we moved this up because we got tuition coming up next. Congratulations, Regent Benson. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not nearly as impressive as the doctoral efforts being pursued by Regents Mendoza and Harrison Lee, but I understand it's one step at a time. So appreciate the opportunity.
Makes me wonder if we need to check qualified admissions at
Yeah,
state.
yeah. President Ship may want to veto that. Yeah.
All right, any questions or comments before we take this on? We've seen it twice before. All right, do I hear a motion to, we need to act on this, right? Yep, do I hear a motion to approve? As John explained.
I'll move.
Second.
All right, moving second, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and press into tuition here, and then we can take a break after that. So we had a first read last month where we went into a lot of detail, had the opportunity to ask more questions. It has also twice been before fiscal affairs. Again, a deep dive last month and another review again earlier this morning. And so instead of having every campus present, we'll hear from Elaine, but then just want you guys to have the opportunity to ask questions or clarifications or create discussion here. Obviously, is an important thing we do. And then we can take a vote. So Elaine, anything you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to add very much. We are referencing now pages 116 and 17 of your board agenda. Just want to point out the graphs in the middle of page 116 to help those who have not served on fiscal affairs, have not had the benefit of some of the discussions. Just a quick reminder, we talk a lot about the general use budget, which is the student tuition revenues generated by these tuition rates, and then our state appropriations for the general operating of the campuses. So those blue and yellow stripes of the pie chart there, these are not to scale. Those pie charts are not to scale. But just to give you a sense for why are the universities seeking these rate adjustments, of course, employee salaries and benefits. Our universities are heavily devoted to people and to our buildings. As Director Bristow talks a lot about how we are doing better with our buildings, we still do have utility rates to pay and expenses to operate those buildings, and that comes with greater expense in the face of the inflation. So with that, I would point out then the table in the middle of page 117 as a refresher as to how the rates have been adjusted in recent years. Just a reminder that there have been quite a few years there with zero rate adjustments. And in light of the legislative action this year, especially for the inflationary adjustment that the governor had proposed, that was not included in the final budget, the universities are seeking some rate adjustments.
All right, thank you. Questions? Follow-up questions for Elaine or for any universities, Regent Ice? I see a light on.
Well, okay. I was ready in case there was a question for fiscal.
Okay, yeah. Questions or comments? Regent Dykes, I saw you reach forward there. Yeah. I guess, I'll just have one comment here. One, I do appreciate this chart on 117 and admire our ability to have held it flat for 4 years consecutive at KU and 3 out of 4 years at all the other universities. And recognize that even with this increase, we're still under the cumulative inflation or way under the cumulative inflation there. So I recognize the dedicated efforts we're all making to look at our own efficiency on campus and in our programs and what we offer and how we take care of our facilities. How we've worked on need-based scholarships and all that as we work on the whole thing. But we do have to deliver a high level of excellence for the people that are coming. And so that it does cost money to do that and to recruit the faculty we want and to retain the staff that make Kansas as special as it is as a state to work in and to perform in higher ed. So we got to stay dedicated to that, but I appreciate the efforts up to this point. And I'll entertain a motion collectively on the tuition, unless there's any other questions or comments. Regent Dicus.
I would make a motion to accept the tuition increases and fee proposals for the 6 state universities for fiscal year 2024.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded versus doing a voice vote because of the identified conflicts that we talked about earlier. I'm going to do a roll call vote on this one. Before we move to a roll call vote, is there any further discussion? Okay, John Urey, will you run through the roll call for us?
Regent Dicus.
Aye.
Aye.
Harrison Lee.
I for all of those universities and abstention for anything related to the WSU doctoral program.
Aye.
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 I vote to approve. However, I abstain from voting on any tuition and fees associated with the Kansas State doctoral program.
Aye.
I would vote yes with a recusal for anything related to the PSU MBA program.
Sound like it passed. Yep. All right. Unanimous with 3 abstentions to their particular program. So thank you all very much. Ton of work went into this. And I think it's worth mentioning this conversation starts at the retreat. And as we're looking at projections and we're trying to pull that out to 3-year projections and what we're thinking is going to happen with enrollment and costs internally and all the ways that we can attack this. So buckle up. We'll start talking about this again at the retreat. Okay. Thank you guys for all that you're doing. All right, let's we'll keep moving here. We need to act on additions to the fiscal year 2024 housing rates for the University of Kansas. Elaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 118 is a simple rendition of the special rates that the University of Kansas Lawrence is seeking your approval of today. This relates to a good problem to have, I suppose, where they have more students who are wishing to live in on-campus housing for Lawrence than they have capacity for. So they are seeking to house 3 people to rooms that have generally been designated for 2 members. And so these are lower economy rates or the new rates noted there in the middle of the page. KU is looking to gain about 200 spaces from this action with the tripling of folks and with the potential for some private lease spaces for about 500 additional slots for the coming year. They have reviewed life safety systems and accessibility for the affected rooms, and code compliance upgrades will be implemented prior to their occupancy with 3 students to a room.
This does offer a cheaper alternative too with the triple option, right? Yep, which is good. Any questions on this?
Not to complicate things, but just a nuance to make sure it's clear. The only thing we need to approve as a new rate is the triples. The others are already approved. It's information. That's what we'll be using if those other spaces are necessary, which we hope for.
Great problem to have. All right. Any questions or comments for Elaine of the University of Kansas? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the adjusted rate? It's the addition of the economy triple rate.
I'll move.
Hear a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
Ooh, wow, second and tripled. I don't know. I'll let whoever's doing the minutes figure out who got that one. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Is anybody planning to live on campus at KU this next year? We need abstentions on that. I'd need 3 of those to take my family in, if I can reserve that. 3 triples for the Rolfs. Okay. All righty, let's use this as an opportunity before we move to academic affairs, to take a quick break. So we'll reconvene here at 2:55. 2:55. Let the record show we are reconvened. We are in academic affairs, section 6. C.
Daniel?
All right, we got Daniel coming up. While we're waiting for everybody to settle in here real quick. Dan Ship, I forgot to ask, you biked across Kansas. How was fundraising? How was the effort? We got any highlights for us?
Oh my gosh, a lot. I mean, there are so many highlights. I would just say that we had a ton of fun. I think I'd like to thank all the regents that came out with us. Cindy, awesome. Diana, awesome. Blake, okay. Right. We really did have a lot of fun. It was great to see. I mean, so many interesting communities. We met with a lot of alumni, had a chance to meet with some of our governmental partners throughout the state. Just absolutely a great experience. It was tough, there is no doubt. I think we all know our time is pretty limited, so there's not a lot of training prior to. But we had an amazing team at Pitt State. I just want to thank all that group because they made sure we didn't get smushed and we got from point A to point B every day. And we raised a lot of friends, raised a bunch of money for students at Pitt State. I think we're right now around 7.6 million. Our goal was to get to 8 million. So we got pretty darn close.
Next year, are we doing a bike race with a prize?
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we should golf in every county in the state.
All right, I'm gonna pass the next part of the agenda to our faithful Bass chair to walk us through it. So Regent Kiblinger, take it away.
All right, thank you. Just want to give a little background on this before I turn it over to Daniel and then ask President Ship if he wants to just share a word or two about where this idea came from. When this first came to us in Basque, it was obviously a proposal from Pittsburgh State University, and I certainly want to hear that because it provides the context for then the next item that's on our agenda, which would be a policy that would make this concept permissive for all of our universities. And when we began talking about it, we thought it was such a good idea that we didn't want it to be something that we thought as soon as people see Pitt State do this, there will be others that will want to follow. And rather than have a series of individual proposals, we wanted to examine the idea of making it permissive for all. While of course holding harmless anybody that may already have permission to be doing some other sort of AA degree. We certainly don't want to interfere with that work of the universities already in place. We did not know how quickly we would be able to get the language drafted to have a more universal policy on the agenda, but our staff is very efficient and they have managed to make that happen. So that kind of explains why, if you're scratching your head going, why do we have these two things on here at the same time? That's kind of how that evolved. And again, kudos to the KBOR staff for getting us to the point that we actually are looking at both of them at the same time. We didn't know if that would be the case, but I want to have Daniel go ahead and present on the Pitt State policy, as that is what started all of this. And then I'll have a motion when we get past that.
Thank you so much. So PSU is requesting to offer an Associate in Arts and General Studies here. Really important to note some of the parameters that are around this. This will only be available to baccalaureate seeking students here, the Pitt State associate degree. So in other words, students can't kind of pursue the AA as a standalone program. They have to be primarily baccalaureate degree seeking here. Really important to note, there are a decent number of students that accumulate 60, 70 or more hours that stop out for whatever reason, life happens, and they have no degree to show for it. So this really provides PSU an opportunity to better serve that student. That's a big issue here. It also, though, provides an opportunity for that student to gain some momentum and hopefully continue on and complete their baccalaureate degree. So President Ship, you may have more to add, so please do.
Well, thank you for that, Daniel. Thanks for entertaining this. I think it's really important. You know, when you have these kind of rare moments in time, I've spent the last 2 semesters listening to about 700 students in different focus groups at the university, and then also meeting with alumni all over the state. We call them guerrilla gatherings. And we've talked about there's a lot of hope for a future with a degree complete, right? And we all know public higher education, many institutions face 1 out of 2 students actually leave with a completed, achieved credential. Okay. And of course, there's some exceptions to that, and it vacillates by program, but let's just use that, right? 1 out of 2 students get to the finish line. Well, we're all trying to improve that, and we certainly are all of my colleagues, and certainly we are working really hard to lever up all those students that finish with their undergraduate degree. Well, we started looking at the numbers and listening to those students that were challenged or life got in the way, right? We talk about life getting in the way and they need to stop out. Many times with a lot of those credits, Daniel, that you pointed out, but with nothing to show for it, but maybe owing significant dollars, right? So in some cases that you look at $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. And for our students, that's a real lift without having a credential to take into the workforce, right? So we started looking at how can we create a disruptive solution that would really benefit students and families, right, in Kansas. And for us, I think this is not unique. There are some other institutions around the country that have taken this on. And so how can we learn from what they've done, but also put in place, it's also a really good way as you build up momentum as a student to work through your gen eds. It provides a real purpose to getting through your general education requirements to receive an achievement as you move toward finishing your bachelor's degree. And it also, if this is approved, will confer automatically that AA degree, unless a student says, well, I don't want that, they could opt out of it. I think what we'll find in our structured advising program on campus, if I was advising Blake Benson, I would say, Blake, congratulations. Guess what? You probably don't know this, but this semester you just passed the threshold and will receive your AA degree. That's amazing. Keep working. We have another few semesters to go and you're going to earn your bachelor's degree too. So it's a both and for our students, and it protects Blake's investment of treasure and time. So if life does get in the way and maybe Blake has to move to Indiana, maybe you're in the service and you have to enter into a new educational journey at another institution, you show up with that associate's degree, kind of like a suitcase, which will help confer all of those courses that you've taken and allow you to finish in an expedited way. So I just think it's good we know that on our campus, students are already earning this and paying for it. What we want to do is confer it and really help boost them toward ultimately earning their bachelor's degree. That's the real point to it. I can just tell you in talking to alumni that are guerrillas out there, and even those individuals that didn't quite finish their degrees, this has created an awful lot of excitement for our educational community. It's a way to really protect that investment. So thank you for considering it.
And your plans to go back and confer degrees on a look back basis too.
Absolutely.
All right, Regent Kiblinger.
So when we heard this proposal in Basque and we began debating it, and we said, gosh, maybe we talked for a bit about just putting this idea on hold and developing the other policy that would be permissive for all, but we didn't want to hold Pitt State up. And so I actually made the motion to bring it forward to the board and said, with the understanding that if we pass a policy that's universal for all, that anything in there will supersede if there happens to be some tiny little something in the Pitt State policy that doesn't line up with the universal policy, that everything in the more universal policy would would apply. So that was the way that we moved this forward to the full board. And then, as I said, very pleased that we actually do have the policy that would make it permissive. So what I would like to propose is that we don't make a motion on this, but go ahead and talk about the next policy. And if it passes, that will of course cover Pitt State's proposal rather than having two motions. But if that should not pass, then I want to reserve the right to come back and make a motion to pass the Pitt State policy, if that makes sense.
Chair hears you. I agree with that. So let's move on to item C2.
The associate degree policy here. And essentially this establishes parameters for PSU and other state universities that don't offer an associate in arts and general studies or liberal arts to offer such a degree. And again, we lay out the parameters. I talked about the student, just like I talked about with the PSU request, they have to be pursuing a baccalaureate degree. So they can't pursue kind of a standalone associate degree. Probably the most significant parameter to point out gets into that we recognize that the community college sector is the primary sector for the AA degree or associate in arts degree. So if a student comes to a university with 30 or more hours from one Kansas community college, instead of awarding the degree, the university would work with the community college on what we call reverse transfer. And then the community college would be positioned to award that degree. So there is kind of a line of demarcation that's there. The second piece, though, that's in this paper that's equally important bringing up is, we want to renew our commitment to reverse transfer here. We talk about reverse transfer. We're talking about a student who's earned a lot of two-year college credits, and then they transfer to university, and really having a collaborative process between the university and the two-year college to determine if the student is eligible for the associate degree. So we're really talking about capturing students who have a lot of two-year credits and no degree, and then checking to see if they have one. And a lot of time when you're talking about students who have a lot of credits, particularly if they finish their math, in many cases, they do qualify for these more general associate degrees here. So we want to revisit this and explore ways in which we can improve it. A big thing we're going to tackle, I'm looking at our esteemed general counsel over here, is looking at the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. This is the federal regulation that specifies student privacy, obviously gets into records, and we're going to be looking at that because right now we have it set up to where the student actually has to opt into the process. They have to check a box like on an application in order for that to kind of set the reverse transfer piece or in motion. There could be some options to look at to where it's more of an opt-out, where the student is automatically in the process and they don't have to check that box, and then the process plays out a lot more seamlessly. There's some language in FERPA that talks about being able to share records between institutions when it pertains to the student's enrollment. So there's some things that we're going to look at there, but we definitely want to renew our commitment there and see if there's ways in which we can improve it.
Questions or comments?
Here.
Yes, Regents.
Two items. First of all, I just appreciate all those that have been involved in this conversation. This has come a long way since President Shipp had initially floated this idea. A lot of conversations among the provost, among Heather Morgan and her community college partners. So I appreciate everybody that has been a part of this conversation, because I think the proposal is even stronger than it was a month or two ago. So thank you. I also just want to say that I'm excited about what this does to the workforce demographic data of Kansas, which is almost always requested by companies that are looking to invest in Kansas. They ask what percentage of your population has a degree of some sort. And in an instant, those numbers are going to drastically improve. So if this were to pass today, Kansas instantly becomes more competitive for economic development projects. So kudos to everybody that's been involved in this.
President Shipp.
Well, that was really well said, Regent Benson. One of the things that I forgot to mention, I would just add this as a data point. We looked at between 2019 and 2022, how many students left the university with with a bunch of credits and owing money, but with nothing to show for it that would qualify for this AA degree, it's nearly 600. So to your point on the numbers of people that this will really support, benefit as families, as communities for workforce in the state, it's a big deal. That will also provide momentum toward another degree as well. So those numbers are really staggering when you start looking across the system.
President Muma.
Yeah, this came up today at COPS, and I believe, Daniel, you have a workaround. We've had an AA degree for many, many years, and students at the university opt in just to that degree as their pathway. Many of them go on to complete a bachelor's degree. But we didn't want this policy to prevent that from happening. We don't want to prevent on and off ramps into our university. So I think you've added something additional.
We did. So I do want to point out there's sort of a subsequent iteration there that's in your materials that we worked on in between the BASC meeting and the big meeting. You'll look at number 9 on the page there. It says the requirements in paragraphs 1 through 8 shall not apply to any approved associate in arts degree program offered by a state university before June 13th, 2023. And so just to add a little bit on the history, Wichita State has been doing this for, I think since like the mid to late 90s. So they have some established practices in place. As President Muma said, they do have students who are solely pursuing the associate degree. Some of them will go on and do the baccalaureate degree, but some of them may not for whatever reason. Life happens for those students too. So they already have established processes in place, and this is something that's firmly kind of embedded in their academic offerings. And so essentially they would be exempted from this because this certainly predates, I mean, we're talking quarter of a century ago, essentially, they've had these practices in place.
Regent Harrison Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to commend the BASC chair and the committee, as well as Dr. Archer and the university president for working on this. I think as we look to increase our economic prosperity in the state, it's really important that we have an opportunity for students to be able to get the degree. I think it also serves as encouragement for those students from families who may feel like college is not an option. Just having that achievement, I think, motivates and encourages them that they really can do this, and it kind of encourages them to continue to move forward. So I want to commend you for the work, and I think this is a move in the right direction for us as we look at access for those families that we traditionally have not served.
And I would just add one more thing, if I may. As we did work through this, we were trying very hard, of course, to focus on the students, because that was really at the root of this, and making sure that they left our universities with a credential of value, as opposed to those who stop out, drop out, and leave with nothing. So first and foremost, I think we were focused on the students, then what it could do for the state of Kansas. But then we moved into making this as much of a win-win for all of our institutions in the system as possible, and really do want to acknowledge the thought-provoking comments that came forward that Heather Morgan brought from the community colleges, and we worked really hard to incorporate those, and really look forward to the work that you all still have to do this summer, how we can improve that reverse transfer process, and make sure that students who do go on to the universities are making it as easy as possible for them to realize and reverse transfer back and get those degrees awarded from the community college level that they are entitled to, if that's where that ticket should be punched from, and that they have that appropriate piece of paper on their wall. So anyway, it was a better process because of all the dialogue and collaboration that went into it. I think we've ended up with a really good policy that will be very exciting for our state moving forward.
Regent Ware.
Maybe this is too technical of a question, but I understand that you said the proposal is only for students seeking a baccalaureate degree.
Right, the ones that when university offers it, that's correct.
How do we know that?
They will basically declare 2 majors in the computer system. So they'll have kind of a primary major and a secondary major. So their baccalaureate major would be their primary major, and then the associate would sort of be the second one in the list.
So how early now, this shows my ignorance about the technology. For a freshman entering, do they have to declare a major when right away?
For federal financial aid purposes, you do have to have a major in order to qualify. So some institutions may still have kind of an undeclared category, but in order to get aid, you have to have a major. But I think it's my understanding this is going to be kind of the default second major for everybody, that all your freshman cohort that come in.
By the way, I think it is a great idea. I just was concerned about it. I want to know about the application of this. Is that going to be a bureaucratic problem?
President Ship.
I think the simplicity is one of our design principles at Pitt State. So we want to keep this really simple. We want the students to hit a tripwire, right, as they move through their gen ed credits. Once they hit that tripwire, their student advisor will reach out to them to say congratulations.
So we really won't have a situation where a student wants to get their certificate, but it just hasn't declared.
Oh, no.
There's always going to be a way.
We'll systematize that, make it really simple for the student. And I probably failed to say this earlier too. I really want to thank our provost, so Howard Smith, on our campus for leading this effort with our college deans, to really think this through so that it can be simple and easy, and it makes it really easy for those students.
So secondly, I think I remember on our 3-person committee several months ago when you brought this up, and obviously you were thinking about it before, but I want to compliment you and everyone in how efficiently you move forward with this. You know, it's said that you can't never get stuff done because of shared governance. This is pretty impressive to move this quickly on something that's important. So well done.
And when I might just say that it was very important to us that we continue to recognize that our community colleges are the place that students go if their intent is to earn an Associate of Arts degree. Those are the institutions in our system that you would go to earn that degree. It's the most efficient, cost-efficient place to go do that. So this is meant for those students who their end game is the bachelor's. Life happens. Oops, I don't have a bachelor. So instead of them getting nothing, they can now have the AA. Now for our students, take 2 students, student A starts off, wants a bachelor's, but goes through the community college route and either earns the degree there and then transfers on, or transfers on and is now eligible for reverse transfer. We've had that in place in the system, maybe not as efficient to get that reverse transfer. But if this student stops out, drops out when they have 75 hours, if they've met the right classes, they have an associate, an AA in their pocket. If this student starts at, we'll say Pitt State, and they start there as a freshman and they get that same 75 hours, but they didn't come through a community college, they don't have a safety net. They don't get to say, I have an AA because I really earned it. There wasn't a way for them to award it. So it's really to cover this student who may have the exact same classes as this student, but they took a different path. We've got a way to get them a credential. We didn't have a way to get this, but again, keeping in mind, this is really designed for that student that from the get-go, the bachelor's is their end game. So just want to be sure that I'm clear on that, because I think it's very, very important that we have designed this policy to try to keep the intent true, that the place that one goes if you want an Associate of Arts degree is our community college system.
Further discussion? Not, I'll hear a motion to approve with the amended one that's in front of us with number 9 on it.
I would like to move that we approve this policy and recognize at the same time that it will grant Pitt State the ability to pave the way with this.
Your second.
With gratitude for your leadership, I'll second that motion.
First, second, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, unanimous. It's great. Great work, Bass. Great work, Pitt State. Great work to your sector working with us on this. I think a lot of the next things we have is showing the partnership and how we're looking at students here and figuring out ways to work together, help them navigate our system. Do want to encourage everybody, look back retroactively on that too, so we can recognize the work that people have done in the past as well. All right, let's move on to, so that means we don't, Regent Kiblinger, I just want to make sure I heard you right. We don't need to go back to C1 because that is approved because we passed C2. Would that be correct? All right, congrats, Pitt State. You got approved as part of C2. All right, go Gorillas. All right, C3, act on system-wide transfer of associate's degree in elementary education.
Yes, and Steve, can you? Okay, good deal. Appreciate that. So just want to remind you, we've been talking about this for the last several years here, and just to go back to the goal here is really to create a system-wide associate degree where all the credits will transfer and apply into a like program at all of the public universities in the state. And as everyone is aware, our first transfer associate degree is in elementary education. We really picked this one for a couple of reasons. The first reason being is that it's always had very high enrollment. When we look at our community college to university transfer population, this is a major that they tend to select quite often. So that was a big piece of it. We also have teacher shortage, as everyone is aware. So this certainly puts us in a position to help increase the talent pipeline in that really important area. So this is really how this works here. Okay, we're getting there now. All right, so we've got a student, they want to major in elementary education, but they want to start out one of the 19 community colleges. And we're assuming that all or most of the community colleges will offer this here. At the end of the day, though, it is up to the community college. Obviously, that's not mandated in any way, shape, or form, but we assume that at least most will offer this. So they're pursuing an AA or AS degree. That's really what we're talking about here and looking at this, the trajectory of the community college. But the ultimate goal is to pursue a baccalaureate degree. That's really what we're after here is you have to have a baccalaureate degree to be a certified teacher. And so the bus here or the truck and the pallets here really represent the baccalaureate journey here. So each pallet on the truck represents 1 credit hour. So there are 120 pallets that represent 120 credit hours here. And just so you know, we do have a face to go with our story. We have a student here. His name is Rambo Stallone. And he is pursuing an associate's degree. Let's say that Rambo has gone on and he's completed his associate degree. So he is now a graduate, which is great.
Looks like he'll make a great teacher.
He will. He looks like a kindergarten teacher. That's what I tried to say this morning. But anyhow, I watched Rambo 3 like the other day. I thought this was going to go over better, but my wife made fun of me. I was like, no, I'm going to get this. But
Dr. Archer, that's the don't smile before November face for elementary teachers know well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably not a real inviting space here. I'll have to ask my daughter who's going to be in first grade in the fall if she'd want to be in his class. She'd probably say no. But anyhow, we've got our truck here and the student has earned an associate's degree, which is great, but equally important and really more pragmatically, half of the baccalaureate degree is done, regardless of where they go. So we're looking at this now through a transfer lens. The student has now looking at transfer options. Really important to note that their options are open here, that the 60 hours will transfer and apply to the Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education at all 7 public universities. So it'll work at Emporia, it'll work at Hayes, it'll work at K-State, Pittsburgh State, KU, at Washburn, and down at Wichita as well. So we have so many students who know what they want to major in, but they don't always know where they want to go. So this really provides a lot of options for that particular student. And so now we've got to a point where he's completed the baccalaureate degree, so he's a graduate again. Just want to really reiterate, though, this line of demarcation. This was really at the heart of what we were trying to do here, trying to create a pathway where a student could do 50% of the baccalaureate degree at the community college and the remaining 50% at the university. And we've done just that here. There's only been probably 4 or 5 states that have really done this type of work. So we're joining a pretty limited club here and we're planning to expand this to other programs, but this is a really big first step. Certainly want to express gratitude toward the deans and the colleges of education. They put a ton of time on this. Regent Lane, appreciate your leadership on this. I know you were involved in those meetings and helped promote this. And Dr. Carla Wiscombe was unable to be here, but hope she's listening. She was our staff lead on this. Appreciate all her work and leadership on this. And then he's not here anymore, but I definitely want to acknowledge Shane Bangeter, Regent Shane Bangeter. This was his vision 3 years ago when we were starting COVID. I remember him, sitting in that chair and saying that, we've got to create a framework for transfer associate, and we've got to do that. And we've done that now. We've got one program in the books and many more to come. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Great PowerPoint. Questions for Dr. Archer? Yes, President Flanders.
Yes, I just want to acknowledge the deans in education that came together to do this. I kind of calculated our issue paper, I think, says a little longer, but they really did this in 3 months. And Paul Adams was leading that work. I think Paul's here, but really did it in 3 months. And so so in terms of our goals for next year, as you think about the retreat, we could do 4 or 5 of these. I mean, 3 months, right? So and this is this is complex. Like the elementary ed was not easy, but between the institutions. So what this really does is it really, I hear a lot about credit loss. Particularly as you go to present testimony, there's always a question about credit loss. And what this will not prevent is if you change majors. You decide, hey, I want to be a welder, you start in a welding program, and then you say, I kind of like this, but I want to go fine arts. The credits aren't going to match. What this will do though, is if you're at a community college and you say, I'm going to Kansas State University, and then later you decide, well, I want to go to KU, you will not lose credits based on that institution's selection. So that really does help our students and also makes advising at the community college, I think, so much, I don't want to ever say easier, but clearer for students. So thanks for all this work.
That's great.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the system-wide transfer associate's degree program in elementary education with great appreciation to all those involved.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Great work, everybody. That's a big one. Shows it can be done. Here we go. All right, act on institutional workload standard policy. Dr. Archer.
So Steve's going to cue me up here in just a second here. I think we've got.
Any more Rambo? Is this a clip from Rambo? 3?
Yeah, no, sorry. No more Rambo. This is a more serious topic.
Cliffhanger. Maybe another Stallone.
At least this morning, we noted that the truck with all the pallets was driverless, and that was somewhat concerning.
That's the future.
Yeah.
It's the future, Chance.
I'm an innovator. What can I say? It's a program review framework.
Workload policy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. My fault.
This one's a lot lighter lift than the one you were trying to get.
Oh, my fault, Steve.
Policy that we need a policy, I think is what we got here.
Right. Yes, so for instructional workload, I apologize here. I got off there. So just to provide background on this, I think most everyone that's been here more than a couple of years now will remember that we've talked about creating a kind of a more prescriptive instructional workload standard policy. We had a lot of discussions about this last spring in terms of spring of 22, where everything would really be defined at the system level, where everything would be kind of centrally defined here. But after receiving feedback from the institutions and going through the RPK process, it was determined that we would create a policy that would require each university to have one here. So we've done that here with some basic parameters. I do want to emphasize that all of the state universities, with the exception of K-State, have some sort of instructional workload standard on the books. And K-State has drafted some language and it's going through their shared governance process this fall. So they'll have something ready here in the very near future.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve?
I would make that motion and note that Chair Rolfe, you could have added this to your list of accomplishments under your leadership.
Well, we set it out there as a group. All right, I got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, there you go. The dream team senior class. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, sorry about that. All right, on to number 5, act on program review framework.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So there's really 3 key pieces to this here. We're going to be looking at 25 through 28 here. We're going to be looking at AY 24, which is really kind of in the immediate future, and then a new proposed program cover sheet when we have new programs come in here just to kind of standardize some information. But the first thing I want to talk about is the academic program review for 25 through 28 here. For the universities that report out here each year, there will be some documentation as well as a verbal report here. And when we look at the documentation here, you'll see a copy of the state university's academic program review policies and procedures. And there's also, number 2, the information detailed in the academic program review guidance sheet. And these are some metrics that we've created that really align with the strategic plan, which I'll talk about here in a moment. And then we get into number 2 here of just a verbal report here from each respective university during their review year. Well, they'll provide a description about their review process, which there'll be some similarities. There'll be some things that are different. You know, obviously we have institutions that have different missions and functions and so forth. So they'll provide an opportunity for them to expand on how their processes are unique. And then just some examples of how the process was successful, as well as some opportunities for improvement. In terms of the metrics here, we tried to be really intentional about aligning this with the strategic plan. And we have the family pillar, which is commonly referred to as pillar 1, and then we have the business pillar, which is referred to as pillar 2. And so when we look at the family pillar, there's affordability, there's success, there's completion here, the percentage of full-time junior and senior majors that enroll at least 30 hours per year. That's something that we have tracked for a number of years. It's a really important indicator. We just haven't done it at a programmatic level. So I think it'll be really beneficial to go down to the programmatic level and see what those data look like. Then we also have the maximum number of transfer credit hours that apply toward the baccalaureate degree from 2-year colleges. Obviously, we want to try to maximize the application of 2-year college credit as much as possible to shorten time to degree and cost of degree. Certainly understanding that there's going to be some differences among programs that, you know, we did expand that to go up to 75. Some programs will be able to go to 75, some won't. So this will provide, I think, some insight on that. Then we get into success here. We're really looking at student demand, looking at number of majors, the various levels. And then we also have a wage data piece there, an undergraduate median wage data 5 years after graduation. So we're not talking about immediately after graduation. We're talking about 5 years after. Then we have the completion metrics there that get into the number of completions, as well as a junior graduation rate figure for our undergraduate population. And then we get into the business piece there. We have the talent pipeline, getting into the percentage of undergraduate degree completers employed in the region within 1 year. And then meeting workforce needs there. That's just a narrative there. Institutions will provide some background on how multiple programs are meeting critical needs through workforce development and/or research-related type endeavors. And so there's obviously good stories that are out there. This provides an opportunity to highlight and showcase those good examples.
Just a question on region. What do you mean by region?
Sure. And so just to provide a little background on that, that would be those employed in Kansas and Missouri. We have had a data sharing agreement with Missouri Department of Labor, I believe it is, for a number of years now. So we're able to track that particular data point here. And obviously, when we look at our graduates, there's a lot that are in the Kansas City area. Some are smart enough to stay on the Kansas side, some go to Missouri, but that provides an opportunity to track that when they go on the Missouri side as well. And so in terms of the timeline here, we really arranged this according to research classification. And KU and K-State are classified as very high research universities. So they're classified as Research 1 or R1 institutions. So they go in year 1. And then year 2 is going to be WSU. They're classified as an R2 institution, so high-level research. And then our regional universities will go during year 3, Emporia, Hayes, and Pittsburgh. So that's kind of the timing here. I think the bigger thing and the immediate thing I should probably clarify is getting into a Y24. And that's really what we're going to be jumping into here in the immediate future, because that really flicks over when we get into July. And so this really starts this summer. And so we're going to really take an intentional dive into undergraduate programs. And I think this is an important population to focus on. We look at some of the enrollment declines we've had. They've been more at the undergraduate levels. And I think obviously we have to take in consideration some of the forecasts and trends that are out there and look at that as well. So there's really 4 key elements at the heart of this review. You have student demand, you have degree production, you have supporting the talent pipeline, and then you have student return on investment. So you'll see here, student demand is 25 or more junior and senior majors. We have the degree production, 10 or more, the talent pipeline. Of the students who graduated, 51% or more, so just a simple majority, are employed in the region. So again, in Kansas or Missouri, within 1 year. And then we have the student return on investment for the baccalaureate degree. Again, we're looking at wage data 5 years after graduation, median salary of $38,052 or more. That's 280% or more of the poverty level. And on top of that, really important to note that MIT has a pretty well documented salary kind of calculator to show like a livable wage, and they take in consideration local costs. And when you plug in the cost for Kansas, it comes out at right around 38,000. So it's very much in line with that. So essentially, board staff will identify programs that do not meet the threshold on 2 or more of the metrics and kind of put them on a list that we're going to be looking at. We're also going to look at this through a duplication lens when applicable here. So for each program on the list, when any kind of duplication occurs, we're going to provide just some basic market share figures, looking at both public and private institutions in the state. So that way we kind of know the lay of the land and kind of what's going on in terms of the number of completers they have and sort of what their market share looks like when you look at it through the lens of completers. So that'll be a piece that will go along with this. I want to fast forward to September the 20th. At the BASC meeting, the Board of Academic Affairs Standing Committee BASC meeting, we will bring a list of the programs that don't meet the threshold on 2 or more of the metrics and any market share data, again, to that meeting on September the 20th. BASC will have an opportunity to remove a program at that time where it is determined that the data don't pose any significant concerns. It is also established that the program provides a mission critical function. And so by the end of this meeting, the goal is for BASC to codify the list of programs that will be reviewed by the universities during AY24. And so from there, it really goes back to the campus, and the campuses will conduct reviews. They'll have a 6-month period to complete those and sort of report back. And they'll make one of the following recommendations to either phase out the program, merge the program, or place the program on an action plan and review and monitor it for a 3-year period. And then again, this will be submitted. The recommendations will be submitted to board staff by March 21st of 2024. From there, late spring of 2024, you'll see here that the BASC will review the recommendations and advise the board on any actions. And then ultimately the final say will be up to the makeup of the board at that time. I should clarify because I know it'll be different. But it'll be up to them. We anticipate that would probably be May of 2024, the way it looks right now. And so these are really the key pieces, again, for reviewing existing programs. I do want to briefly highlight some new elements that we are going to add when considering new programs, because I think this is an area that we're trying to kind of enhance. And so just to provide a little background on this, when a new program proposal comes in, we haven't had consistency in terms of data points or sources for data. And this is really our fault at the board office because we haven't really had a clearly kind of articulated process. So hopefully this will tie up some of the loose ends. So when a new proposal comes in, we are going to have about 4 things that we try to look at. Again, when any kind of duplication occurs, we are going to try to do that market share analysis again, so you kind of know the lay of the land and what's going on out there. Some other key pieces, we're going to use something called Lightcast to look at state and national employment here. So that way you can kind of see what is the projected growth in the state as well as at the nation or national level here. And then we're also going to look at current jobs and kind of where they fall in the state here. And obviously this will probably be a pretty common theme here, looking at KC and Wichita, but some of the fields that have a lot of government jobs, Topeka ranks higher in certain instances. So we'll have that piece. And then another element I think is going to be really critical is just looking at what are the anticipated wages associated with this. I think that, you know, higher education is being criticized a lot in a number of ways for affordability and earnings and so forth. And I think it's really important that we take a really purposeful and intentional process here, and we will provide some wage data looking at, again, both the state level and at the national level as well. So happy to answer any questions you may have about this.
Questions for Dr. Archer or further comment too from just the BAS process on this? Regent Kimberly?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. So a little more in-depth background on how this developed. And I guess we could go all the way back when over a year ago, we started looking at program review process, which I guess sort of started, we did the RPK review, but really where this work came from, we asked our provosts to really put their heads together and bring us a proposal of what they envisioned that we could do to make the program review process more meaningful for everyone. And we tried to stay very close to the recommendations that they brought us. We did add some of the data elements to it. We went back and forth with the provost several times. We're meeting even as recently as just a few days ago to iron out the final details and wording and clarity for them. I think everybody feels really good about where we ended up. And so want to definitely thank the provost for their work on this. I think we've created a process where we have data that we need so we can do, as Provost Bickelmeyer said, data-informed decision-making, which is a good thing. And also we'll have an avenue for them to tell us the stories, not only about things that are challenging and what they're doing to make program improvements there, but also the programs that are growing and thriving and benefiting their economies. And that was definitely a piece that was lacking, and the ability to tell those stories on kind of both sides. That was something that was loud and clear in the suggestion from the provost, and something that I think will help us a lot with our friends across the street as we explain what's going on with our program review process as well.
Nice.
Well, I had two questions. I think that addressed one of them for sure, but I'd just like to confirm again. So this is essentially the program that the provost recommended.
It is it plus other things that we've added and talked with them about. So.
And they remain aligned?
I think so.
Okay. All
They
right.
didn't throw anything at us in the Basque meeting today, so I felt pretty good about that.
Good.
And we tried really hard with the data that we were asking for. If you look on I call it the like the Greek temple that's in here, but you'll see that most of that objective data, that's all something that we're able to generate. So we were trying to also make it so it didn't place a lot of work on the universities, that this was all data that we had and could pull from more sources and bring together. So I think that was helpful as well.
Yeah, that was the important part of our design principle, that we were eliminating something that everybody agreed wasn't helpful, and we were using the things they were already doing, enhanced if necessary so I just feel the need to make sure we say we're remain aligned and preserve that. And it's a little hard for me to catch up, since I don't think we ever saw this material before today, because we didn't get it out before this. So that makes it a little difficult. And that, I guess, goes to my second point. It's highly likely we're all aligned with the things that are actions going forward, but we are going to talk about our goals for 24 at the retreat in July. And saying we're going to do something before we're sure what our whole array of goals are, I think we need to reserve the possibility we may. Unlikely, this is one we've been working on for a long time, but we may want to make some adjustments based on those conversations.
And process on this, just so I'm clear, is it looks like we do some work and then we revisit this a year from now. Is that right to finalize? Is that what you were saying?
No, we would jump right in and do the analysis in 24, and then you all would make a call on those recommendations that were made in terms
Okay,
of 24.
you make the first call. On
Yes,
programs.
yes. And then we'd have our process from 25 to 28. So we really have everything mapped out over the next several years here. And there was definitely a lot of feedback that we met with the provost as recently as last Friday and even made changes then to meet their needs. And
Questions, comments? Yes, Region Winner.
Thank you. Please don't read anything into these questions and assume that I've got a position because I don't. Shelley mentioned something that I was thinking about, and that is, I think somebody referred to our friends across the street. We have to, of course, make the decision on this type of topic based on what we believe is right and proper for education, for advancement of all of our strategic plan, et cetera, not based on what third parties might think. However, we at minimum need to be prepared for what third parties will think if we approve this. I think that the attention span across the street is about the same as when I was over there 35 years ago, which sometimes isn't great. So imagine a world where we're across the street or we're somewhere, and we've explained this new program. What if somebody said to you, well, I don't understand what's really going to change here. I don't really, you haven't told us what programs would have been eliminated. So imagine somebody like that says, well, what if this framework had been in place starting 5 years ago? How many programs would have been eliminated or phased down or merged in our Regents universities if this framework was in place and active 5 years ago? We at least need to be prepared to answer that question because it's going to be asked. Do you have an answer?
you know, we haven't done the data analysis yet, so I think I would reserve judgment there. And I mean, then there's always going to be a level of subjectivity. I mean, we're going to give you all data to make an informed decision, but there still could be different philosophies or ideologies that, you know, influence that. So it's hard to say when you have people who 5 years ago were different than they are now. But I think we really have to take a look at the data here, I think, to probably give you a better idea on that. We'll conduct that analysis over the summer.
Regent Lynn?
Thank you very much. This is a really critical, important step for us to take with the commitment that BASC will be continuing to review and bring back any suggestions for improvement as we go with feedback from the provost. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the program review framework.
I have a motion. Oh, you second? So I got a motion and a second. Further discussion before a vote. All right, all in favor?
Wait a minute, I would like to say again, I'm fine with the framework. I don't fully understand with the speed we got this, what that means we said we're going to do in a year and our ability to undertake reviewing every program in the following year. And then we have result at the end of next year. Now that's all, it may very well happen, but I think we have to put that in the prism of all the other things we're going to undertake in fiscal year 24 when we talk about what our goals are for the year. And this is consistent with what we've had for goals in the past. That's all highly likely, but I think that's important to recognize we may need to make adjustments, not with the framework, but I think we're being asked to approve two things here, the framework, and then this is all the work we're gonna all do in FY24. The second part, I'd like to be able to make sure that we're comfortable with that once we have all our goals in place.
Chancellor?
Yeah, Daniel, along those lines, do you have a high pass sense of maybe going back to Regent Winter's question? Or are we about to completely clog up the pipeline of review? I mean, how many programs do you think are we talking about on a first pass? Because this now is no longer rotating programs. It's taking a swath across the entire enterprise. And
Right.
that would be my only concern would be, are we about to drop hundreds, dozens?
Right, I wouldn't anticipate that it would be hundreds by any means. You know, we're planning to run the data over the summer, and I think we'll have obviously a clear picture of what we're looking at numbers wise. And also Basque has the ability to make some adjustments to that list in September as well. So there's some flexibility there, and we have a conference call that's in early September, and we have the retreat. So there's definitely some pieces leading up to that where some additional work can be done.
And that's what I was gonna say. So the data takes place over the summer, which Daniel felt like their team had the bandwidth to get that done, get that to Basque. Then Basque obviously have a heavy lift there in September at that meeting. Reviewing that data, provosts are gonna get that ahead of time too of that meeting. So look at it, make those decisions of then these are the things that will be reviewed and go forward. So I think Basque will be gatekeeper, I guess, for lack of a better word, of making sure that, you know, they don't go overboard and say, well, you know, we have 300 programs we want reviewed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Regent. Let's finish your thought before we pivot.
Well, I can be comfortable with that, but that's the whole point, I think, that we laid a timeline out that we're reacting to real time, that talked about what we're doing through the whole year of 24. I want to make sure that I at least say that I might later say, well, wait a minute, I think we need to do this or that nuance within that work. And I just don't want to accidentally vote yes and then have somebody say later, well, we said we were going to do this in 24. And that's all I want to protect. So we just laid out 2-3 times we can make adjustments. Great. But let's just be prepared to do that, especially as the whole group's team speed comes up on this.
Regent Winter?
I completely agree with my colleague, Vice Chair. In fact, I'm not even sure I'm comfortable voting for this if it is preliminary, and we all know that. And this will be brought back to us when we know more about the question I asked and the question that Carl's asking and so on and so forth. I'm not comfortable voting for something if somebody says, well, what does this mean going forward? Well, we might say, I don't know. Well, then somebody would say, well, what if this had been in place 5 years ago? How many programs would be eliminated, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know that. That seems like a really important question to know before we walk down this road irrevocably.
Well, I don't know that anything's irrevocable if we get into something we don't like, but I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, President Archer, Dr. Archer, as I understand it, it'd be difficult because just because something meets the criteria doesn't mean the program's gone. It means it's reviewed and
Right,
dialogue, right? So it'd be difficult to say, we could say this is how many programs would have been reviewed or fall into this criteria versus how many would have been eliminated, because it'd be difficult to know how a board would have voted on that, right? Yeah, President Flanders?
Yeah. So we purposefully stayed away from, we're going to have this many programs or this many percentage of programs. Because we thought that was kind of a false indicator that you're saying, well, we're going to eliminate 10% of our programs, or we're going to make sure that 5% of the programs come in this review, because it might need to be 3%, it might need to be 7%. So we have, I think, a better criteria and a better lens to screen the programs initially. And then I think you have a committee, Basque, can take a look, and if it were 400 programs, obviously they'd say, you know, okay, let's readjust here at the committee. And if it were 20 programs, it'd say, well, clearly this is doable. You know, I mean, so I think the committee will have the latitude to be able to adjust that to make sure they can get their work done.
President Muma?
I don't mean to be muddying the waters here. And it doesn't really address what exactly you're talking about, but I just want to make sure you all realize, and I think it's been discussed along the way, that program review is used more than just what we're talking about today. It's also looking at student outcomes, program assessment that our regional accreditor HLC requires. So just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone, that it's much broader than just whether we're going to eliminate programs, merge, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? What's on the table right now, just to be clear, is a motion to accept the new program review as framework as presented. I'm not hearing any amendments. I've heard some concern. So I'll entertain a vote on that. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Same
Aye.
sign. Okay, so
No.
got it.
By way of explanation, I'm assuming this is going to come back and we'll all be able to decide whether we like the latest iteration or not. But I won't repeat what I said otherwise. Thank you.
All right, good work, Basque. Thanks, Provost. I know we asked for quick action on that, and we'll just let it be noted that we'll be watching this immediately at the beginning of next year and pivot as necessary as we move into new waters. So thank you for everybody's collaboration on that. Why don't we take a short break? Just want to be a quick one. Let's say we're back here at 4:10. My gavel's at 4:10, then we'll get on through. We won't need number 7 on the agenda, so there's not an executive session at the end of this, so we'll just get through section E. All right, quick break. See you at 4:10. All right, welcome back to your regularly scheduled program. Believe we're on number 6 here. Act on dual concurrent task force recommendations. The one and only Regent Lane. Regent Lane.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And let me start by thanking the K-Board team for their enormous amount of grace they showed me yesterday as we learned that the document in your board book had some flaws. So the first thing I'd like to ask board members to do is go to page 144, 145, and 146 and draw a big line through that. And then find the actual new and improved version of our recommendations at your place. So what is in the board book is not accurate. Had some flaws in the data section and elsewhere, and it is now corrected by what's at your place. So I also would like to extend my appreciation to the task force and to this board for the opportunity to be on the task force that's working on what is really a critical piece to ensure that all Kansas students have opportunities to move forward in their careers. That committee was made up of community college representatives, tech college rep, member of the Kansas State Department of Education, 2 K-12 superintendents, and Regent Kiblinger and myself. And it was a small group. Oh, plus I can't leave out Dr. Carla Wiscombe, who was really the backbone of us getting our work completed. So a small committee, but we've worked tirelessly over the last 12 months to meet the charge that this board set out for the group, which was to find a way to accelerate the talent pipeline, ensure access and affordability for all, and to focus on structural issues that could strengthen our collaboration. So on page 147, you'll find what I refer to as the one pager, which in essence describes the challenges before us, the opportunities, and it was the opportunity section that framed the policy recommendations that are before you. We also spent a great deal of time under the leadership of Superintendent Adrian Howie, who's with us virtually today, to outline how this actually works to provide dual and concurrent opportunities down into the high school. So Mr. Howie is on a short time frame, so we're going to have him share with you the implementation first, and then Dr. Carter File is going to come up and talk to you about our policy recommendations. And then following that, I'll have a couple of closing comments, right? So Adrian, I think I saw you there. Welcome. And the floor is yours, showing us how this might work.
Thank you, Regent Lane, and the rest of the board. I apologize. I've got to run to coach some softball games tonight, so I appreciate you allowing me to go early. I'm going to share my screen and talk briefly about how might adding additional dual credit course offerings at the high school work from a K-12 system perspective. And as we looked at it, there were several things that we wanted to really look at doing. One, we recognized that the current K-12 system is very rigid. Students come at 8 o'clock, they leave at 3:30, and we control all parts of their day. We recognize as they start to move on to higher ed, which has a lot more flexibility, students start to struggle. And so how can we start to stay rigid in the early parts of high school and unstructure some parts in the junior, senior year, include more dual credit course offerings, more pathway offerings, align the K-12 pathways with higher ed pathways, and really work to provide students more of an opportunity to get college credit in high school, increasing their persistence into post-secondary. So what you see before you here really is what we in the K-12 world call our individual plans of study. We recognize that the K-12 pathways currently and the higher ed pathways may or may not align. And so one of the things we want to look at is how can we start to begin to align these so it becomes more of a K-13 system, and then goes on from there. The courses in black would be traditional high school courses. So this is a plan of study if education would be, would be a student who's wanting to go into to become a teacher. Their freshman year, you see the fall semester and spring semester courses. The red courses would be KSDE current pathways. And you can see how they start to align from a freshman year, career and life planning, human growth and development, moving on to teaching as a career, and then starting to move in as their junior year, starting to get in some observations and into an internship their senior year. The blue courses then become dual credit courses that students can begin taking. Some of them are gen ed classes, but some of them also would start to become courses that fit into the pre-education pathway at the higher ed side. With this current pathway as it would play out, students would end up graduating with 31 KSDE or local board high school credits, but they would also be able to graduate with up to 24 college credit hours. They would also be a pathway completer from the KSDE perspective, meaning that they have taken an introduction, a technical, and an application level course, all in the education pathway. Plus, they would have internship hours or work-based learning hours, and they would pass the Parapro, which would allow them to really work as a para in the K-12 system as they're into their post-secondary studies. So that's one thing that we're trying to look at. How can we, again, start to get more dual credit courses, plus the pathways, plus, as Dr. Lane talks, the Diploma Plus, some type of a certificate or a credential so that students are more likely to persist on as they move. The second one would be a nursing pathway. It looks very similar, but again, you'll notice the black courses would be traditional courses taught by high school teachers. The red would be those K-12 pathways, and then the blue would be post-secondary dual credit courses. And from my perspective, what I'd love to see is in the senior year, we start to produce students who are spending more time on either on college campuses or in technical schools, so that they're spending more time there, seeing what it's like to actually be a post-secondary student and start to see some success that way. So with that, I'm open to any questions that I can answer.
Any questions or clarity for Adrian, as he has demonstrated how it is truly doable for students to graduate Diploma Plus here?
It's helpful to see. I think it's good work.
Dr.
Guys,
Lane,
the Eagles out there? Is that what I'm saying here?
we are the Eagles, yes.
All right, go
Yes.
Eagles and softball then.
Yes.
Anything else,
I-
Adrian, do you want to add?
Well, I will say, I think the next steps from the K-12 perspective, one, I've mapped currently education, nursing, sports medicine, and pre-medicine. We've got to continue mapping out the rest of the K-12 pathways so that we can start to see how that goes. Ideally, then these pathways become streamlined, as the recommendation talks about, with the college and career navigators, so that our K-12 counselors have a pack full of what these individual plans of study look like, so that they can work hand in hand with these career navigators, helping streamline students into the next steps. The other last piece is we fully need to identify what schools are currently not offering dual credit classes and identify what barriers for those individually we need to do so that we can ensure accessibility for students across the entire state of Kansas.
So, Adrian's work has really taken away the mystery about how this works. We've talked for years about offering the opportunities, but this lets students and families see concretely what can occur. So thank you, Adrian. Stay online with us as long as you can. I'm going to invite Dr. File forward. And as he does, return board, if you would, to page 147 and look at the green box, which we've labeled opportunities. The opportunities come from our own experience, but also from the research of Education Commission of the states, the kinds of things that are most transformative to ensuring that there is access and opportunity for all students. And so Dr. File has graciously agreed to walk through the policy, and then we would welcome hearing your comments and questions and guidance on next steps.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Lane. I'm going to just hit the policy kind of high level, talk a little bit about our goals, some of the things that need to be accomplished to make those goals happen. I do want to, this would have been better if I'd have followed Daniel directly, but I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have anything to present. And in Hutchinson, if I say I don't have a PowerPoint, people start cheering. So,
Well, and you look kind of like Rambo.
well, okay.
Put your tie
I don't
around
even
your
know
neck.
what to do with that, John.
Just gotta put your tie
No,
around. your
it's not really. It's, I don't like to say, I don't even know what to do with that, but thank you for that. I'm going to say thank you for that, John, because I don't know what to do with it. So the Diploma Plus is the title of our initiative. And again, credential, certificate, or a degree for all high school students. And some of this we may need to be a little bit, we may need to be creative about that credential because we may not be able to fully, a student may not be able to get a full credential, but we can give them some recognition that they're making progress on these pathways that Adrian mentioned. So I want to thank the board for addressing this and for making, giving us the charge to do this and putting Dr. Lane in charge of that. It's an important, very important issue for us. And the community colleges and of course the broader two-year sector, including the technical colleges, we're thankful to be involved and be at the table to do this important work that we believe that will benefit students and our Kansas employers and the Kansas economy, both directly now and in the future by, doing a number of things for our students that will get them through sooner and get them into the workforce sooner. I too want to thank all the participants, Regents Lane and Kiblinger, Dr. Slander and Dr. Carla Wiscombe, and of course the rest of the K-Board staff that supported us. The two-year sector, Jim Jeanette and Heather Morgan were instrumental in this. And then from the secondary perspective, Adrian Howie from Hugoton, and Adrian's already been on with us, and Jeff Travis from Beloit, go Trojans, my hometown, and Ben Proctor with Kansas Department of Education. So those are all the people who are involved in it. But Dr. Lane really drove this and kept us on task and made sure that we met regularly, stayed on point and covered the things that we need to get the outcomes that are best for our students. Our charges, I think Dr. Lane mentioned this, but was accelerate the Kansas talent pipeline, ensure access and affordability for all, structurally strengthen collaboration between the two systems, between K-12 and post-secondary ed. You have the background in front of you, so I'm going to just hit it at a very high level. The paper addressed the challenges of the small state population that Kansas has, our outmigration and how high our outmigration is or how poor our retention is, however you want to look at it. The mismatch between jobs and skill sets for those jobs and the need to grow our certifications and degrees. Those are all challenges for Kansas and for the Kansas economy. We think that dual enrollment can help with a number of these. The paper discussed and defined dual and concurrent enrollment and dual credit. I may use those terms interchangeably. They are specifically different things, but they all accomplish the same thing, and that is getting students college credits. And we'll talk a little bit more about dual enrollment in just a second, specifically dual credits in just a second. The background also highlighted the positive impact that dual or concurrent enrollment has on Kansas high school students, specifically seniors, by increasing affordability, encouraging completion, and it aids the economy by having students better prepared when they come out of high school and also ready to go into the workforce sooner. While the news is positive around dual and concurrent education in the state of Kansas, it can be uneven. It can be, some students have a lot of opportunity to take dual and concurrent education, others do not. And there's also an economic piece of this. Some students can afford to take dual and concurrent, some students cannot. So we think both of our goals address those two problems and some of the unevenness. So goal 1, offer 3 dual credit courses or 9 hours in all Kansas public high schools. The courses have to be on the Regents approved system-wide general education transfer course list. To accomplish this, we think the Kansas Board of Regents and the Department of Education should encourage enrollment of eligible high school students in these, and the education providers and the local boards of education need to be innovative and creative in the ways that they're offering these courses. Local boards of education will be encouraged to adopt dual enrollment as dual credit towards high school graduation. Right now, students can take college credits that do not count towards high school graduation. And we'd like to see that eliminated. We'd like to see that if a student takes a college credit, it counts towards graduation. There are some USDs that do this for very specific reasons, and we understand that. We would like to see that improved. Kansas Board of Regents and post-secondary providers will work together to determine course readiness of students using multiple measures and standardized processes. So this bewildering maze of scores and taking tests to get into courses will be standardized and be much more uniform across the system. Kansas Department of Education will create educational pathways to help students clarify their paths and the next steps they need to take. That was what Adrian just showed you. He showed you 2 specific pathways. We should have pathways like that for every potential college major. And what you will see is most of the classes they will be taking will be general education, freshman and sophomore general education classes. So the pathways, developing those is definitely doable. Goal number 2, subject to appropriations by the Kansas legislature, students who are eligible for free and reduced federal lunch program and are academically eligible, so they have to be able to qualify to get into the courses, may receive tuition assistance of up to 24 hours. That's our aspirational goal. If 24 hours isn't a number that the legislature can support, we could ask for 9 and step into this much like we did Senate Bill 155. Put the program in place, fund the program, and then prove that it works for those students. So again, that's our aspirational goal. And that's how we grew Senate Bill 155. We didn't start out Senate Bill 155 with the total amount we have today. We started the programs, watched the enrollment grow, and then asked the legislature to fund it. I see this program being the same way to do that. We'd also we'd like to see the state pay a per credit hour rate that's one rate that's agreed to by all colleges that want to offer this. That rate would be established by the Kansas Board of Regents in collaboration with community colleges, and we would work together to find out what the right rate for the colleges is. Receive funding for 2-year colleges to employ college and career navigators to assist students in career planning, help with which courses they need to take. We saw that the pathway, the career path, that would be one of the things they would use, one of the tools they would use. And they'd help students clear all the hurdles they need to take post-secondary education classes and move into post-secondary education after high school graduation. Then finally, under this goal, prepare and distribute materials making students and parents aware of the program. And that would be available during the high school enrollment period. And I can visualize something like what Adrian had, and we could use that to help students make those career pathway decisions, but also prepare and distribute other marketing materials just to make students aware of it, that they can take college classes more generally. We believe that the outlined goals and the suggested steps will give all Kansas high school students the opportunity to take college courses, earn college credits, and start their college career sooner. And then in a result of that will be they can get into the workforce sooner, which will aid the Kansas economy. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Questions? President Carter. Questions for Regent Lane? I think we lost our superintendent. Softball. Yes, Regent Winter.
Regent Lane, just curious about, if we adopt this, where will Kansas stand relative to other states, neighboring states? How far away or close will we be to what they're offering?
Thank you for that question, Regent Winter. Kansas has a strong dual and concurrent program already. What we have opportunity to grow in is equity, to ensure that all students in all Kansas high schools have access, and we are not there yet. Adrian mentioned that we're still trying to clarify exactly what that gap is. But I can tell you that most recently Oklahoma, Georgia, Washington, and Utah and other states are moving to offer dual or concurrent opportunities at no cost for all of their students. So we have some opportunity to grow.
Excellent. Thank you.
Regent Kibler? No. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions or discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Regent Benson.
Okay, really just a statement. First of all, thank you so much to Regent Lane and Carter and everybody that's been a part of this process. I mean, this is aggressive, but it's exactly what we need. I would just challenge our institutions, if this is approved, to really aggressively make sure these students continue their journey beyond high school. I mean, it's a golden opportunity. Once they're in your system, I mean, please don't assume that they're going to continue that education, make it as easy as possible for them. Because I think sometimes it's easy for us to just assume that Kansas kids are going to go to Kansas institutions and they're being recruited by other states. So it's a golden opportunity for recruitment. So well done.
Regent Mendoza?
I just wanted to reiterate my gratitude for this whole idea. I know we kind of talked about it in Bass this morning. One thing that I do feel like should be highlighted is number 8 on the opportunities, the fund navigators. Heather Morgan this morning talked about that would be kind of like a train the trainer type of model too for school counselors, which I think it's essential right now. We need boots on the ground. We need people in our schools helping our students navigate this whole system, this whole process. So I really, it's all great, but I really like that part. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we agree with you. And I believe it's not only helping them get ready to take classes in high school, it may be helping the student to identify what they're interested in doing. It may be sitting down with the undecided students. I joke sometimes what I think these people should do is ask everybody what they know they're going to do after high school. And if they raise their hand that they know what they're going to do, they can leave, because we need to find the people who don't know what they're going to do. I think Blake said, I don't remember if he said it in here or in Scops this morning, that the college going rate is down.
I believe it's about 2%
Over 10 years.
years.
Yeah.
7% over 10
So
years.
we need to reverse that. And I think one of the ways we reverse that is we let students know what all of their opportunities are after high school, whether it's to go to one of our 4-year partners and get a baccalaureate degree, whether it's to go to a technical college to get a technical degree, whether it's to come to a community college and get a transfer degree to go to a 4-year, or come to a community college and get a technical degree. I think students, this is my opinion, I have no data to back this up. I think students are not coming to college because they don't know all the opportunities. And many of them, when they hear college, they think student debt and a long time. And I think there are ways to get around.
I appreciate the comments. This committee has really worked hard, and we've had very authentic conversations. And so a couple of thoughts. One, I want to make sure that in the pathway examples, you understand that those are our gen ed framework courses. So there's another place that is really having power. I also want to say that we have some sticking points where we need to continue the conversation. Sticking points around the navigators being available to universities, technical colleges, those things we can work through. Another sticky point is funding. Where does this come from? And how do we totally look at all opportunities for that? And then the broader thing is whether or not we can move to a more I'll say this word, inclusive or bigger plan, so that all students, regardless of their economic status, have access. So we still have work to do. So I would ask the board to consider approving this recommendation and to move it to the retreat for further conversation with our partners, and perhaps even including state board of ed members, so we can get this moving.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not voting on a new policy. This is a task force recommendation, which is to work towards policy and partnership, right? Yeah, just one. Yeah, Regent Dicus?
I got a question. How much of the college credit is going to be taught online versus in person? When you talk about trying to reach every high school student across the state, yeah, I mean, I assume most of this is going to be online, and is that the
I don't,
type of
I
education?
don't know that I would say most of it's going to be online. If we have qualified high school teachers that can teach our courses that are highly qualified, they will be the ones we would look to first. If we have the Higher Learning Commission requires that a faculty member that teaches a college course has a master's degree in subject matter or a master's degree plus 18 in subject matter. So if we have a high school instructor who has those qualifications, we would absolutely use them. The other thing is we are starting to use some different innovative models where we'll have team teaching. The coursework will be online, but there might be a classroom teacher that can help those students. Think as a super tutor. Some of the coursework will be online because that's simply the only way we can deliver it. Those classes can be delivered during the high school day with some teacher oversight to make sure that students are staying on task.
All righty. Okay. Regional, I don't know that we've had a motion yet. You may kick it back to you, Regent Kiplinger.
I would move that we accept the task force recommendations.
I hear a motion.
Second.
I hear a second. Any further discussion? Great work, task force. Thank you. Good starting point. Let's keep leaning in. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. All right. Chancellor Gerard, come on up.
I'm going to start from right here. So I'm going to call on one of my colleagues to help out here. We are bringing forth a request to offer 4 different degrees, education degrees in I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of Xinhua, China, with the Zhejiang Normal University. This is a great opportunity. We have a prior established relationship with this university, with our School of Education. And I want to invite Rick Ginsburg, our Dean of the School of Education and Human Sciences, to really present on this. This is something he's been working on with his team, and I think is a very exciting opportunity for us, but does require board approval. Rick, are you online?
I am. If you can all hear me, it'd be great. It's seeing you
We can
all,
hear you and we can see the slides.
and you can see the slides. Good. And you don't see my face, which makes it a better presentation for you all. So great.
Please take it away.
Yeah. Thank you all. It's good to see you all again. I've been sitting and listening to the really interesting discussions you've been having prior to this. As Chancellor Gerard indicated, we've been invited to become to create the first institute approved by the Chinese Ministry of Education between the University of China and in the field of education in the country's history. They have major ones like this with key universities around the world in medicine and in engineering and in business. And we're rather gratified to be the first education school in the world for them to invite to create this kind of partnership where we will be offering 1 undergraduate degree in elementary teacher education, and then three master's degrees, 1 in special education, 1 in curriculum and teaching, curriculum instruction, and then 1 in educational psychology. That will have 2 pathways in it, a pathway in counseling and a pathway in educational psychology and research. So if we can, the first few slides are just drawn from our original proposal to talk about our university. If we can move to the first slide. Nothing new to any of you here. You know that KU is in the prestigious AAU. We're one of 66 universities across the US and Canada that carries this designation. We carry approvals, obviously from you and from the Higher Learning Commission. We're a Research One university that was mentioned in an earlier presentation. Our research is hovering towards $400 million as reported last year, and that's the tops in our state in that, and fairly high compared to other universities across the United States. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This slide just talks a bit about the University of Kansas, and these are data that you all are aware of. I do note on the bottom there that we currently have 388 students from China. That is down a good bit, I think, from where we were prior to COVID. where I think our university and others all across the state and the country had quite a few more students from China. Perhaps that will change as COVID lessens its impact, but we'll see how that changes going forward. If you go on to the next slide, please. The School of Education Human Sciences, we're made up of 5 departments. 3 will be engaged in this program. Curriculum and Teaching, that's the undergraduate teacher education elementary program, and then 1 master's degree. Special Education, the leading department, I believe, in the world in special education, will offer a master's degree. Then Ed Psych will offer 1 degree, as I indicated, with the 2 program areas in that. The way the program at the undergraduate level is set up is that KU will be presenting 54 credit hours. The colleagues in China will present 66 credit hours. The courses will be delivered in English in China by their folks, and then we'll be sending faculty to China and their campus to deliver the courses at the undergraduate level. At the graduate level, I believe the programs are 36 credit hours, and we're presenting 7 of the courses in the master's degree programs. Our involvement in this would commence in the fall of 2024. If we can go to the next slide, please. A little bit about our school. You all may know this. We're one of the most highly ranked schools of education in the United States. This is from the U.S. News and World Report. We're in the top 10 amongst all public universities, number 17, I think, overall. Last year tied with Johns Hopkins. I think this year tied with Arizona State and Florida. Number 7 overall in terms of federal research expenditures amongst education schools, and you can see some of the rankings of our specific program areas as well. Move on to the next slide, if you would. We've worked closely with China over the years. We've been having students coming over from China to take training with us from a number of universities, Central China Normal Universities in Wuhan, and Southwest China University is in Chongqing. We've worked very closely over the years with the 2 top education schools in China. There's one in Beijing and one in Shanghai. Indeed, the dean of East China Normal University, which is their top education school, and I formed a group called the Global Education Deans Forum. It's made up of about 40 deans of the top research universities around the world. Just to give you a flavor of that, it's the deans of places like Hopkins and Vanderbilt, and Michigan State, and University of Washington, and us and others in the United States. We have representatives from 6 continents and about 20 countries around the world. And that one thing that came out of that was some of the relationships that led to this partnership. But one thing that's interesting is Thomas Friedman's talked about how the world is flat. We in education seem to share common issues. When the first meeting we held of this group, we found that in every country we're dealing with teacher shortages. In every country we're dealing with, how in Lord's name we're going to deal with AI and now ChatGPT. We found out that every country is dealing with, how do you train diverse students well? I know Provost Regent Lane and Regent Kiblinger have helped us think a lot about structured literacy and helping kids to read. Those are issues that are facing the world. So we share a lot. So these partnerships can help us because we can learn what other people are doing and help our own work, and maybe share some of the things that we're doing that can help others. If we go on to the next slide. ZJNU is a highly accomplished university in the Xinjiang province, about an hour and a half north of Shanghai. Again, this is a Ministry of Education approved program in China. It's taken us years to get this approved. A part of that is due to COVID, and a part of it is that China is very meticulous in how they review these kinds of things. We're excited about it because I think it will allow us to learn a lot from each other. I think we can share a lot of our expertise. We can share some of our research expertise and learn from some of the research that they're doing on some of the issues that I just talked about. And this kind of partnership, I think, is not going to be unique to us. I know, for example, that our colleagues at Fort Hays have been offering programs in China for a long time, and my Fort Hays colleagues should hear, quite successfully so. They have a good name across the country in China. I know my colleagues at Kansas State, for example, have been doing an awful lot of work in education with students in Ecuador and other countries in Latin and South America. So this isn't unique. It's a way to get more students to our universities. It's a way to perhaps give our students different kinds of experiences, and also our faculty exchange with others around the world. So we're really excited about this as something as maybe the harbinger of things to come, not only with people across the globe, but I think probably people across the state and across the nation as well. And I do believe that is the last slide. Let's just go on to, oh, I'm sorry. This just gets on again, referring to specifically what we're doing. And then I've talked about that. I think with that, I can stop and see if there's any questions. Doug will answer the hard questions, and I'll take the softball ones that you offered to us.
Any questions from the Regents here? Thank you, Dean. Any questions? Comments? Okay, Regent Winter.
Can you give us a little more color on the financial aspects of this? How much is it? I assume you've run the numbers.
Yes.
You know how much this is going to cost us, and how much we're going to be paid for that. I don't need you to get into details, but I do think we need to hear from you that you've done that calculation and that this is designed to be
Yes.
positive from a revenue standpoint.
Yes, I can give you what we've run. We've run our Office of International Studies. The way we've set this up is they pay a yearly fee to us for each student that is in each of the programs. Differs a little bit by undergraduate and graduate, and based on their, and this is China, where enrollment is never an issue, obviously, given their population and the like. We've run this, and it's a significant moneymaker for the university.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions or a motion to approve?
Sure, I'd move to approve this proposal.
Thanks, Regent Winter. Do I have a second? All right, thanks, Regent Dicus. KU twins there. All right, any further discussion? All right. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's move into governance. Proposed change of State University CEO assessment form. You guys have seen this. We've worked it and worked it and worked it again. Julian, why don't you take it away and we'll see if we can't get quick approval of this.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a reminder, board policy requires annual performance evaluations of each university president, the chancellor, and the board president and CEO, and outlines the goals to be achieved by conducting those evaluations. According to the policy, the evaluation, this is quote, the evaluation is intended to assist the board in fulfilling its responsibility for the well-being of each institution and the board office by providing for a regular schedule of meetings between each chief executive officer and the board for the purposes of assessment, improving the depth of understanding of issues germane to the job performance of the chief executive officer, providing additional opportunities for each chief executive officer to express goals for the ensuing year, personal ideas and concerns, and improving management through improved assessment of each chief executive officer. So one of the governance committee's projects this year was to further align the board's strategic plan with State University CEO goals and the tool used for the CEO evaluations. Because the board previously approved both the current process and the form that has been used, this item is on your agenda today to seek board approval of governance committee recommendations to alter the form. There's a generic tracked version of the instrument immediately following page 151 of your materials, which contains the following changes recommended by the governance committee. So I think I'm supposed to be doing this. This is not a Daniel PowerPoint. I am just going to, I'm not going to do anything. I am just going to point you to your materials in your book. The pages aren't numbered, but if you can't find what I'm talking about, please let me know. In sections 1 through 5, so the first few pages, there are 1 or 2 underlined additions to the factors that should be considered when you're evaluating those different areas of the CEO's performance, leadership, financial stewardship, communication, culture and climate, and personnel management. So I know you all have had an opportunity to look at these. I'm not going to run through them individually unless you want me to.
Nope. Questions or discussion?
Okay. Um, the recommendation was to leave that in there. But the way that it's being done, you're at the very bottom line on page 7. Mm-hmm. Has
The-
increased on time graduation. has
Those aren't going to be ones you answer. Those are going to be filled in by the board book now. So instead of the pop quiz, you'll be able to look at it while you're doing the evaluation. Right, Julie?
Correct.
Yeah, so that'll be
So
filled in.
in section 6, we've included additional foundational metrics to consider, but we've also changed statements to questions to statements. So the board staff is going to fill in has or has not. And that'll be that's upfront. Yes, yes, it was a quiz. You did,
Yep,
yep,
we
some
fixed
of you
that.
didn't pass.
She won't say who. No, we, and the governance committee wanted to eliminate those questions that really don't require any discretion or judgment to answer. So it replace them with statements. So we will give you the data and then you can use that data to answer the following questions. All right. Other questions or comments? Thanks, Regent Dykes.
I just would point out, there's also a new section 7 with a question to address progress toward the board's annual goals. That was not in there previously. So, and the board's goals will now be something to consider as well. The committee did seek feedback from the chancellor and the presidents on these recommended changes to the form. To adopt them, we would just need a motion for approval.
Thank you, Julian. Questions or comments on this? You scrubbed it hard in governance. Doesn't mean it can't be made better. Anybody? Anybody want to approve this thing?
I would move for approval.
All right, Regent Benson moves for approval.
Second.
Regent Ice seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, passes. Thank you, Julian. Great job. All right, President Muma, you have the next 3 items. So knock them out, my friend.
All right. So the first 2 items are naming buildings. So we're requesting permission to name a new building that will be constructed on our campus. We're proposing to name the new building, the Hub for Advanced Manufacturing Research, and we're going to call it Hammer. Just as we always do, we have to come up with acronyms. It's going to be a 150,000 square foot research facility located within close proximity to several other research and instructional spaces on our innovation campus. The funding for the development and construction of Hammer will come primarily from the EDA grant that we received, the Build Back Better Regional Challenge Grant, $51 million, and supplemented with additional funds from WSU's National Institute for Aviation Research and revenue bonds. And we anticipate the building will be completed in late summer of 2025 and construction will begin this fall. Stand for questions.
Did you come up with the name or an acronym first?
The name first and then, okay, so then that looked like it should be called Hammer.
Yeah.
All right, we got some MC Hammer fans out there. Anybody move to approve?
So moved.
We have a second. All right, move second. Any discussion on hammer? All right, all in favor, please say hammer time. Hammer time. All opposed, same sign. All right, passes. Can't touch this. Too legit to quit. Let's keep going.
Okay, the next building name request is the Digital Research and Transformation Hub Building, also on our Innovation Campus. As you may remember, we embarked on the development of a state-of-the-art research facility to house its National Institute for Digital Transformation Program, or NERT. WSU is requesting from you all to name the building Digital Research and Transformation Hub, which represents not only the purpose of the building, but also conveys WSU's mission to create a central location for students to engage in transformational digital research with industry professionals through applied learning opportunities. Happy to answer any questions about that. That facility has just completed construction this few months ago.
So you're gonna call it Dr. Hub?
Yeah. Now, we do have an acronym for it, but I don't want to say it here.
You can. Is it because it's secret or you're embarrassed to say it?
No, it's,
He's concerned about the way you're going to do.
it's not important for the conversation.
All right. Do we have to?
So moved.
All right, we got to move. Yeah. All right, move second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, passes.
All right, this last item is requesting honorary degrees. I'm honored to present Jean and Yolanda Camarena for your consideration for honorary doctorates to be conferred at our commencement in December. As you may know, Jean is the president and CEO of La Raza Pizza Incorporated, and his business includes Pizza Hut restaurants, Marriott hotels, banking, and real estate development. His company has been recognized as one of the top 150 largest Hispanic-owned businesses in America. Yolanda, his wife, is a Wichita State alumna, previously served as the Associate Director of Graduate Programs at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, during which time she was a founding member of the Journal of Hispanic Policy, a publication that continues to be sourced as for Hispanic policy research at the Kennedy School. Jean and Yolanda regularly speak about the importance of ensuring Hispanic youth have the opportunity to pursue post-secondary education. But as what is most important and significant is their commitment to actively supporting this belief. In addition to their philanthropic contributions, Yolanda has led the board of the Kansas Hispanic Education and Development Foundation, and Jean has led the board of the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, which is the largest philanthropic organization in the country for providing scholarships to Hispanic college and graduate students. Jean and Yolanda are truly accomplished in their professional fields, but what sets them apart as members of the Wichita State community is their work that they have been doing to provide the financial services for these traditionally underserved student populations to succeed. Camarena's creation of the Adelante Scholarship Program at Wichita State has been a profound difference maker for the students currently enrolled. Jean and Yolanda have set a standard of excellence in guiding these students through the challenges of higher education, opening their home to providing welcoming and encouraging environments, and while also ensuring that students are connected with the resources needed to complete a higher education degree. Through the lives that they live, both professionally and personally, Jean and Yolanda exemplify values of integrity, inclusiveness, kindness, and service to others. It is my privilege to recommend them both for the prestigious honorary doctorate degrees from Wichita State University.
Jean and Yolanda are dear friends and great people. I'd be honored to make the motion for that approval. We have a motion, a second from Regent Harrison Lee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Muma. All right, President Linton.
Good afternoon. This is a request of a letter dated May 24th, 2023 to name 181 in Hale Library, the Dr. Susan Peterson Room in honor of Sue Peterson, former Chief Government Relations Officer and Assistant to the President. I think all of you know Sue Peterson well. She had 34 years of service at Kansas State University. Two of her legacies is gaining support and advocacy for the $1.3
billion NBAF facility, which was opened up 2 weeks ago. And she also taught a class for 31 years on Kansas politics and government without ever accepting compensation. Nationally, she's been very active with the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, also very active on the Big 12 Council, and has received many awards at Kansas State and nationally. Some of those awards include the Marvin Sweet Johnson Achievement Award, the 2016 Flinchball Family Wildcat Pride Award, the Betty Colden Memorial Leadership Award, and a very prestigious award with the APLU, Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, which was the Career Excellence Award. The Hale Library really does hold a special place for Sue Peterson. Back in the 1990s, she received funding for repair and renovation of a library which was called the Harrell Library. And in doing so, received funding from the Hale family to rename it the Hale Library. And then, of course, you all know that there was a fire back in 2018, and it was Sue Peterson that provided the advocacy to be able to get funding for the restoration and renovation for the new Hale Library. Room 181 is a multi-purpose space that's used for faculty, students, and staff. And today, I would request your approval for the naming of this to the Dr. Susan Peterson Room.
I would like to move that.
And I will second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. And we're grateful for Sue's service. That's great. All right, guys, we made it. We didn't quite, yes, sir.
I can just
Regional
add something in tribute to Sue. When I went to the state legislature in 1982, very shortly thereafter, she took her job as lobbyist for K-State, not wrong word, sorry, in liaison. And we worked very closely together for years on funding for higher education. And I have a lot of respect and admiration for Sue. So good job.
All right, everybody, thanks for making it. I'm sorry we didn't make it under 5 o'clock, but you get double time for the last 5 minutes. So, all right, we stand adjourned.
Hey,